Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, hello. All right. So many good things to go over today. Buckle up. We're going to get into it, and it's going to be good, and you're going to like it. I'm just kidding. Okay, but seriously, buckle in. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Music linked in the description. Samantha Dragonati. Today's the day, girls. We're gonna try. This is gonna be an attempt to tackle something that I've been thinking about, that I think is important, that I think is trending, that I think is a bubble overlap. So I'm excited to go over it today. I hope you guys had a great day yesterday, a good morning today. Shout out to my Americans that are just starting off their morning in the Pacific time zone, and my Europeans that are late into our afternoon. So there is a deviation of bubble on the internet, and we all live in bubbles. And if you're new to my content, my name is Brittany Simon. I do philosophy through pop culture here, and we are here to comment and observe the world around us to better ourselves and then the world around us. So there is a deviation in bubble. Bubble is a perception, okay? Political versus the artist commenting on the system, the thing that makes life so complicated for all of us. And I want to talk about which camp I'm in and which camp other people are in, and what happens when you have somebody who's in both camps, which I see with a couple of content creators I'm going to talk about today. And I want to hear your opinions and your thoughts. Yesterday's stream was so good. And if I learned anything from yesterday's stream, it's how even people who feel like they're in the same bubble as you can just deviate so slightly on language use that it can feel like, oh, are we on the same? Like, are we saying the same? Like, are we on the same page? And that can feel scary sometimes, or like a deviation or a threat because of the deviation. You know, it can feel like this isn't consistent enough for me. And what I want to do is I want to build us up through today's stream. So it's a theme stream. I want to build us up to a conclusion of what I've observed over the last who knows how long. And I really look forward to hearing your thoughts. So stay with me here. The way I want to start off this conversation, and I'm going to be a little messy because like I'm still going through it in my own head. How do you know if you're a political commentary channel that's fighting to dismantle the system within the system? And how do you know when you're a philosophical artist commenting on the system? And then how do you know when you're happy and joyful, even though the world is melting down around you? Okay. And this is, you know, I'm really excited to talk about this today because I think that so many of those bubbles are just experiencing it in different ways, right? So human beings universally suffer. The question is, can we wisely suffer? Can we suffer wisely, right? I noticed that, and here are some random observations that are going to help me build my case. I noticed a few things over the last couple of years that I just thought were like really interesting. One, the change in myself, right? I got a couple of comments on my last video just saying like, oh, I used to watch you 10 years ago. Your content used to really piss me off, but you've become so much more empathetic. And I was like based. Great. That's the point, right? Because I grew up very conservative. Also, if you deconstruct conservative Brittany, she was just a traumatized teenager with borderline and autism, undiagnosed, who didn't know any better. So, you know, when you watch people on the internet and you're upset with them, you should give yourself an opportunity to say, am I upset with them, or I'm upset with the system that raised them to be this person? Do I actually believe that like 18-year-old Brittany had any idea about free will, even though she preached that it existed as a Republican, right? Like, I think sometimes we have to remember that same 18-year-old Brittany that was a conservative was fighting her parents about gay people and their rights. So when we show up on the internet, and I'm going to show you a clip from the Vanguards that talk about this, on the internet, we play a different role than who we are in real life. Okay? Sometimes on the internet, we're more angry or more loud or more expressive or more theater, or sometimes we're even, you know, it makes us sound a little bit more centrist than we are even in our own lives, because who we're combating can make us feel a particular way, right? I got another comment from someone saying like, oh, I hate that you private your old stuff. I would love to watch it again. All you would be watching is an unhealed version of Britney that was very confused and often spreading like misinformation or just like bad takes. So even though you remember it being so good, I bet if we rewatched it, it would feel slightly nostalgic and slightly like cringe. Kind of like watching an old TV show again. We'll cover this at the end here. Watching an old TV show and remembering it was so good, and then watching it again, you're like, why is this TV show so rapey? Okay. It's like you remember a version that was great, but like, is it really what you want? Like, is it really what you want? Right? Okay. Also, Discord, shout out to the Hunter, ex-Hunter gift reference. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. YouTube chat said the hair is everything. Thank you. Thank you, Discord. Thank you, YouTube chat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I noticed a few things. This is going to sound so like, how is this related? But stay with me here. Do y'all remember Nathaniel Drew? We used to cover him on occasion, right? And I watch him on my own time. You can see like I've got these videos that I've watched. And something about Nathaniel Drew I could never figure out was why my audience didn't like him. And why I didn't really think there was a lot of depth to his content, even though I wanted it to be. And this is without criticizing the consciousness that is Nathaniel, because he's so on a journey. And everything I say today about everyone that I mention has nothing to do with them as a person. I don't know these people. It has to do with the content and the brand and the version of them they put out to the internet and how it makes me feel. So I'm consuming them as a creative, I'm consuming them as art, and I'm feeling a way about their art. And what I ended up figuring out about Nathaniel, the reason I felt like there was something with his content I never really understood, and it was because he never felt content. And I realized I am drawn to people who feel content. And I realized that I had seen Nathaniel make $1 million, reach 1 million subscribers, buy a house in France, move out of the US, make these beautiful videos, but he was never content. And then recently he left France, left that house he had built, left everything. He wasn't content. He's still trying to figure out who he is, which is absolutely valid. Aren't we all? But there's something about a person's journey that makes me decide if their art is for me. Now, there's something to be said about two types of content creators. The content creator that builds a following because they're middle of a journey and the audience wants to go on that journey with them. But the disappointment of realizing that content creator, even after 1 million subs, even after $1 million, even after everything, is still not content. So then it's like, what are you doing? Or the content creator that's figured it all out and has $1 million and everybody wants to be just like them without realizing what it took to get there. Like Ali Abdaal is another content creator that I watch. Do you guys know Ali? Ali started off on the internet as a doctor. And he started off his content. This is Ali. In this video right here, how I made my first million. I kind of want to use it as a reference point here. So Ali started off on the internet as a doctor talking about productivity and how stressful it was, became a doctor and quit after a couple of years. And he quit after a couple of years because he wanted to be an entrepreneur. And then he recently came out and just said, guys, I like money. Like if you want to make a lot of money, you kind of got to be obsessed with money. Unless you're very, very lucky, you're probably not going to make as much as you think, but also it's not as hard as you think, but also it's not the way you think. And there's something to be said about the entrepreneurial bubble where as much as I read and I consume it, I learn so much more about myself every day that I don't care about money. I mean, I care about money, and I know people say that's such a privileged take not to care about money, but from a philosophical perspective, what I mean to say is that I am not obsessed enough with money to engage in capitalism in the way that I would need to reach $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million. This is a leftist perspective. This should actually be every leftist perspective, that they are not obsessed with money because you're anti-capitalism. So when I say I don't really care about money, you shouldn't be reacting with that's a privilege. You should be reacting with I hope to gain that privilege to realize my life should not be centered around money. And this is a philosophical perspective on money, right? And you can find parables about money and rich men getting into heaven throughout religious texts. So when people say, you know, depending on who's saying it, I don't care that much about money. Sure, they could be coming from a very shallow perspective, but the other perspective, especially if you're anti-capitalism, should be that money isn't the point. Money is a means. It's important. You need to have it. I hope you guys become my YouTube members. I hope you guys use your money to build wealth, all that stuff. But to want to be a billionaire, to want to set out to make $10 million, to want to be a rich person, this feels counterintuitive to everything I've learned about my own life and coincides with exactly why I think Nathaniel Drew is unhappy or at least still searching for himself, because he made that money, he got the status, and he still wasn't content because he has to have that philosophical journey with himself. Now, Ali asked his audience, he took a poll and said, hey guys, for this video here, before he put it out, he said, which title do you like best? And it was like, how I made my first million at 26, how I made my first million, making my first million at 26. And his response to this was his audience's response to this was angry. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like you sold out. You're so shallow. Everything's about money now. I miss your old videos. Why aren't you talking about productivity? And I was like, oh. Why are they so mad at him? Because I had seen Ali transform from productivity to basically making money because that's his special interest. See, that's the thing about Ali. He has a special interest. It's money. I wish my special interest was money sometimes, but it's not. Okay, it's people. And that's why I have a headache every day, because I deal with people. Okay. But he loves money. And I think that's interesting. Okay, I think that's really interesting. But I was mostly interested in his audience's response. And I think sometimes as a YouTuber, people forget that though we are creatives, and we absolutely are, we're also running businesses that rely on the customer, the audience, to tell us what they want to see from the business. So that was sort of helpful in a sense, but also the audience uses it as a chance to kind of like grieve or give unsolicited advice on how to be a content creator, which brings me to Olay. Do you guys know who Olay is? Okay. So let me get her face on the screen. Okay, so you probably know I forget how to say her name. Girl, I'm gonna butcher that name. Olay is so interesting because she shows up on like 6 different channels, right? Like she has like 6 different channels. And the thing about her that's so funny to me is when people try to give her unsolicited advice about her channels and she's like, don't tell me what to do, because she's right. Like she's already doing it. She doesn't need your advice on how to run a business. She's running the business. I don't need advice on how to run my business. When I ask you questions, I'm not telling you to give me advice on running my business. I'm asking you what you want to see. Thank you, chat. Olurinati. I have to hear. It's so funny. I watch her and yet I don't hear it enough for my brain to hear the sound in my head, but I'll get there, girl. I'll get there. And this is like very neurodivergent of me and my audience. But when I tell you guys, as an example, something I've noticed in my audience, right? Something I noticed in my audience that makes me laugh is when something changes. Let's say something changes in the schedule. I miss a day. I have to take off for something. I usually post it in the YouTube post chat to let people know, like I have a government appointment or I have a dentist appointment or something. And people will say, hey, Bray, is this the new schedule? I know you're autistic, so I know that's what it is, but I want you to think about why one change or something changing makes you think I just changed my whole schedule without announcing it or giving you a heads up but like, why does that happen? Now, you probably don't know. And it's my job as a content creator to figure out, why is my audience confused? Because if you had any job in the world, you would sometimes have to take a day off. And it's because the expectation of entertainers or of content creators who post daily is often that they never miss a day. But the truth is, like, there are gonna be changes, right? And I think sometimes people see any variation of change in the pattern and think there's a significance to it. So I saw a comment on my video that made me giggle. It was so sweet. And it was something like, because yesterday in stream, I said, instead of saying the inside thought out loud, maybe I'll just like make faces. But what I really was trying to convey is like, maybe I'll make faces so I can pause and think about what I want to say, because this content was so cute. This comment was like, oh, I don't usually visually watch your streams. I feel like I'm going to miss out, but that's okay. And I was like, you're not going to miss out. I'm not going to literally not talk for a stream. I'm just maybe going to make a face until I process what I'm thinking in order to say what I mean. But I think sometimes because my audience is such a literal listener, even though people are not precise with language, right? We like confuse what someone is saying. And it happens with the most well-intentioned people in the whole world. Do we really think it's not happening with all the ill-intentioned people in the world, right? Hold on, chat's trying to teach me. Illuminati. No, I know what Illuminati means. Wait, her name isn't Illuminati. Isn't that the name of her channel? Because this is the name of the channel I'm on right now. Her name's not Illuminati. Isn't it? Is it this one? Illuminati? Isn't it an R? Or is it pronounced Illuminati? Because it's spelled this way with an R. It rhymes with Illuminati. Illuminati. I don't get it. I'll hear it eventually. Don't worry. Let's not derail. Okay. Oh, her name is Olemani. I can't. I love her. I literally watch her all the time, and I haven't heard. This is my autism. This is my dyslexia. This is my dyslexia where I can't. Okay, I don't know. Either way, see how we do. See the miscommunication? It's fine. I love it. Another thing that I notice about people is they get very hung up on, precise language, even though none of us are precise. This happened with Jordan Peterson in his Jubilee conversation, where him and them would go back and forth about versus the. And this is happening with all of our language always. And so when we get very pedantic and we're like going after people's language, we also will form an opinion that isn't accurate, but makes us think, oh my gosh, this thing is happening. Example from an autistic perspective, when people say give 100% at your job, nobody is doing that. So autistic people go, I have to give 100%. No one is doing that. On stream the other day, I said, oh girls, I've been recording and editing every day. Oh my God, exhausted. Okay. And then somebody in chat was like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine doing that 7 days a week. I'm not literally doing that, girls. No one does 100%, because we're not all trying to burn out and kill ourselves. Okay. This illusion that people are doing 100%, especially by entrepreneurial men that are like, do 100%. You're not doing enough. You're lazy. Half these men make their money by literally scamming people into thinking they're successful. So people give them money that then equals to them being successful. And then they can say, oh, look, I made $1 million. You made $1 million convincing people you were already rich. So they bought your program, which made you rich. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people to understand that what you're seeing and what you're consuming and how you're processing, okay, is subjective to the bubble and the experience you're having. And then all of us are communicating and messing with each other because we don't know how to consume one another. Okay. We don't know how to consume or process each other. And this is what happens when well-intentioned people dissect your work, right? So yesterday in stream, I got into it with a commentator. I just posted the video. If you guys want to go watch it, if you miss a stream, you can watch the clip. I got into it with a commenter because they were, they're like, I'm just trying to explain what people are thinking. No, you're trying to explain what people think they're thinking. And I'm saying, why are you doing this? So when Brittany says, why are you doing this? I'm not asking you for the superficial answer. I'm asking you to dig deeper and think, why are you doing this? Okay. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Okay. And that's really hard. It's really hard to know why. So, oh my God, I just heard like what my brain thinks is a gunshot, but I'm in Europe. It's not a gunshot. I don't know what that was. I'm going to ignore it. So Discord sent me this clip to watch, and it was so perfectly timed for stream today. So let's go through this, and I'm really going to start getting into the content of things. Okay. So I feel like I set us up to have a good conversation. Now let's get into the content I saved for you. Let me make sure his volume is up. Oh, it's not, because he says, this is not a spiral. Just bear with me.
Bear with me. What if none of us should be constantly emotionally regulated and prioritizing our peace while all of this happens around us? Like people being abducted off the streets and out of their workplaces and schools and homes and into camps while we're forced to pay for an ongoing genocide that we're watching on social media as people continue to die from COVID week after week while we approach climate disaster and the cost of living is too high for most people in this country while we break homelessness records. What if we're not all supposed to be constantly emotionally regulated and prioritizing our peace through that? What if that's not wellness? I'm crazy. This is not a spiral, I promise. Just
Okay, initial thoughts on this. What do you think? What do you guys think? What do you think? Any flaw in the argument? What are the positives? What are the negatives of what you see? Okay, tell me what the flaws are. What are the flaws in the argument? Okay. Chet says, I'm not sure I understand what he means by prioritizing peace. Is it a commentary on watching the news? This is from It's Dana White. So I want to shout out that Instagrammer. Chet says emotional regulation does not mean not feeling. So to answer your question, I don't understand what prioritizing peace means. That's a great question. I think that's exactly why we have to dissect it. Right? You know? And I think it's hard because Chess says, wouldn't people the past have issues like us too? Okay, let me explain it. Chess says, if you're spiraling, you can't do anything. So he means this isn't normal. So why are we behaving normally? Ding, ding, ding. Okay, so he means this isn't normal. So why are we behaving normally? But it is normal, isn't it? It is normal, isn't it? Normal, meaning expected, meaning the expectation. Why would this not be the expectation? Why would it not be the expectation that we would live in a racist, homophobic, selfish, destructive, violent world? And then why would it also not be normal that some of us can live every day and go to school and have a good life and never really feel like life was too hard? Right? I think what he's saying in feeling is like really artistically pointed. It's really philosophically interesting. Politically, it makes no sense. But in the feeling of what he's saying, 100. Right? And so I think what happens is we mistake the feeling for the literalness, but literally, I think what he's saying doesn't make sense. But feelings-wise makes sense. Literally, it makes no sense not to protect your peace, but not at the expense of people, right? But emotionally, artistically, like philosophically, like, oh, why are we numb to the world around us? Listen to it again with that lens.
bear with me. What if none of us should be constantly emotionally regulated and prioritizing our peace while all of this happens around us? Like people being abducted off the streets and out of their workplaces and schools and homes and into camps while we're forced to pay for an ongoing genocide that we're watching on social media as people continue to die from COVID week after week while we approach climate disaster and the cost of living is too high for most people in this country while we break homelessness records. What if we're not all supposed to be constantly emotionally regulated and prioritizing our peace through that? What if that's not wellness? I'm crazy.
Okay, so now bringing out my touted ching. You know I love it, girls. 76, stay flexible. A living being is tender and flexible. A corpse is hard and stiff. It is the same with everything. Leaves and grasses are tender and delicate, but when they die, they become rigid and dry. Those who are hard and inflexible belong to death's domain, but the gentle and flexible belong to life. As soon as a tree reaches its greatest height, it begins to die. The strongest soldiers are those who refuse to conquer. The strong stumble, and the mighty fall, and the tender and weak rise above. I think what happens in life is we exist in a reality in which we see the horror of the universe, and our thought is, why are we pretending this is normal, instead of accepting that it is, and forgetting that what we actually need to deconstruct is the word normal. We have used the word normal to subjugate and abuse and kill billions of people over history because they were not normal, because it was not normal, because we didn't like it. The word normal itself should be deconstructed. Normal is such a funny word. It's a moral word. It's like putting a moral emphasis on you're not normal. This isn't normal. Instead of saying this is true, so now what? This is reality, now what? I think for myself, and when you figure out like, why am I doing something? It is a journey that will have a lot of regret, or a lot of back and forth, or a lot of mistakes will happen, and none of us will be perfect. We covered Clara Dow yesterday, and she was a girl who made a living being flat-chested and then got plastic surgery, and people felt betrayed by her decision. Instead of asking themselves, why do you feel betrayed over a woman? Engaging in change, right? And it's because we are the flawed creatures, but we look at the world like it's flawed, as if we are not also flawed. But then, and this is what's interesting, is we run the risk of, and this is why we're terrified. We run the risk of being on the wrong side. Well, we run the risk of being so afraid of being wrong that we say things that are so obviously wrong, but we don't know why they're wrong. So hear me when I say this, okay? For me, as a philosophical person, as more of a creative, I am trying to expose the meaning of man while also having political opinions, because I am both of those people. Some people just have political opinions and don't think about mankind as a thing to deconstruct. Okay? Now look at this TikTok I saw from Hank Green. Okay?
This video is for politically engaged left-leaning people on TikTok. If you know more about the most recent drama among TikTok creators on the left than you do about the bill that is about to become a law in your country, put the fucking phone down.
Okay. Do we know what Hank is saying? So, do we know what Hank is saying? Who knows what Hank is talking about? Anybody in the bubble? Is anybody in the bubble where we know what that means? Ooh, chat says the lib. Now, the Hank brothers over the years have been called liberals, have been considered centristy, but Hank is going down a journey, not John, but Hank, where he's definitely more he wants to be more, I think, in the leftist part of it, but he's not politically leftist in more of a traditional TikTok sense, okay? But I think it's interesting, right? Because the internet is different than the people who are in real life doing stuff. And people who are real life doing stuff are doing stuff differently. And even FD Signifier, right, has talked about like he's willing to engage in political stuff to move things forward. He's not as progressive as Noah Samson, which is interesting. And then philosophically, I think I'm more progressive than all these people. Like philosophically, I am more progressive than everybody because my leftist philosophical perspective doesn't only exist in political bubbles. If your philosophical leftist perspective only exists in relation to politics, it's not good enough. But it's good enough. It's not good enough, but it's good enough. Because I want to deconstruct it all, and politics has a limitation for how you can engage. We'll get into that in a second. If you don't know what Hank is referring to, he is referring to this. He's referring to this.
Petty on the internet for a minute because I think I deserve a little treat. Instincts, I'm going to be petty on the internet for a minute because I think I deserve a little treat. If you ever find yourself in disagreement with something CJ says on the internet, if you follow CJ, great. If you don't follow CJ, go look at my repost, find CJ, follow CJ. If you ever find CJ saying something and you're like, I don't know if I agree with that, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Okay, I'm not a fan of Madeline. I haven't been a fan of Madeline for a while, and not especially after they went for Cat Black. And okay, but Madeline Pendleton, in my opinion, is philosophically lacking. Okay? They are a bad thinker. And this is a good example. Do you know who CJ is? Does anyone know who CJ is? CJ is a 19-year-old child. So Madeline's greatest take is if you don't agree with what a 19-year-old child says, then you're probably wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, your hot take is if you don't agree with a teenager, you're probably wrong. A child, a literal child.
Hey, my name is CJ, and I'm here to tell y'all. I told y'all so, psych nah, but I really want to just thank everybody who has come out in public support and defense of me. And at the time of this recording, I just want to thank whoever has not made a video yet, but is in the process of making a video proving how I was right. But on a real tip, we really need to analyze how I was right and how many people jumped to harass and to just berate me when I was right in the end.
So the leftists are fighting right now, okay? So we've covered this content creator before. Okay, so basically to summarize it, this content creator feels like we could be working within the recent New York election that just happened in our favor, and CJ feels like there's issues with everyone participating in the system, blah, blah, blah. Okay, political. This is political commentary. This is not philosophical commentary on the greater meaning of man, because they can't. They have to be talking within political structure, which is why there's that infighting. So we mentioned it yesterday with Ana Kasparian and the Young Turks, and we're not going to get into the drama today. I'm using them as an example to have a larger conversation. I wish everybody the best, right? Okay, Ana Kasparian, when I covered Anna on Glenn Beck, and everybody said, as we were watching the video, Brittany, she's a grifter. I said, nah, this is trauma. And everyone's like, why do you think this is trauma? Oh, girl, let me get into it. I got a comment on my YouTube video today that just like really inspired me to go down this route. And basically somebody said, Anna admitted they're not left. It's not infighting. And I said, true, I saw the clip. And then they replied and said, yeah, although to be honest, I don't see it as a matter of winning in politics, but betrayal at having the largest center left news show aiding and abetting fascism for money. Here's the thing though. Okay. And I want to explain this to you in a way that is going to probably be confusing. So I'm going to try my best to do it in a cohesive way by using the paint. Okay. So Ana Kasparian went on Glenn Beck, and as I was watching the video, I just knew she was going to say trauma, because a lot of the people who go more center conservative aren't actually grifters. They're traumatized, like Cenk, like Anna, which is why you'll have Cenk on Twitter being like, no, Charlie Kirk, you don't really mean this, do you? Oh, you know, we'll get into that in a second. But I want to explain to you a psychological phenomenon that happened to me and will happen to others. So if you guys don't know my story, my name is Brittany Simon. When I got out of high school, my dad was like, hey, you should be a YouTuber because you want to be a radio host. And why be a radio host when you could be a YouTuber? And I said, great idea, Dad. And I became a YouTuber, and I was really underdiagnosed, mentally ill because I was autistic and BPD, and I didn't know. And I was queer and closeted, or gay and closeted. I wasn't queer yet. I was gay and closeted because queer is different. Okay. I wasn't queer until later in my life. Okay. I was gay and closeted. I was conservative, but I came out conservatism pretty early, but yet pretty late. Like, it was after high school. Okay. I registered as an independent. And then from then on, it was like a journey of deconstructing all of the things that have felt safe and homey to me. And then obviously I disagreed with it. I grew up in a home that was so fundamentally different than how I saw the world. And yet I wanted to be so a part of the bubble because I saw the good in the bubble. But over time, I realized like there is something insidious in the Republican Party happening, and I don't know what it is. But then when I joined leftist circles, there was something insidious that I couldn't explain to people. And I want to explain how trauma and how the world is traumatized and how it ends up making the world that we see around us. And that's okay. But this is why when political commentary people try to talk to philosophy people, we're not talking about the same things. So as audiences, if you're watching me, you have to understand I don't do political commentary. I'm talking about mankind, and y'all are talking about systems created by that man. And I'm saying we should talk about the man, and everyone's like, let's talk about the system. The system is secondary to the man, in my opinion. Okay, but let me talk about how trauma works. So when I was young and I was going through it, okay, I was on this trajectory. This is the Republicans. This is like right wing. Okay, this is an R. Okay, and this, oh, you can't see. This is like left. Okay, left. Okay, and I was on this journey where I was like challenging Republicans, talking about trans people and gay people, constantly being accused of the Republican club if I was like closeted. And I was like, I'm not closeted, none of your business. And then eventually I came out. I came out at 21. Okay. I'm going through my life. I got about here, my mid 20s. Okay. And I was really fucked up. Let's say 25, though that's probably not accurate. Something like this. I don't know. And I'm going through the journey and I got really fucked up. And I was in leftist circles. I was protesting, cleaning up streets, and just confused about my life, confused about meaning, confused about being in love, confused about everything happening around me, dating all kinds of people and all of these bubbles. And then something happened, you know, as I almost hit 30, something happened in my life where it just really fucked me up. And I was like, I'm getting off YouTube. Okay. No YouTube. Okay. I was like, I'm getting off fucking YouTube. Okay, no, you that's a why. YouTube, no YouTube. And that was because I was so traumatized by what happened to me here when I realized none of my leftist feminist friends came to help me, that I went right back to the arms of my conservative parents. I didn't become conservative, but I went back there because they were willing to help me when I was down. And I thought to myself, how bad can these homophobes be if when I'm faced with the scariest thing that's ever happened to me, well, context, one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me in a way that made me feel so scared, how can the leftist bubbles that I had made friends with abandon me, but my conservative parents embrace me? Okay? How did this happen? And why is this happening to so many people? And it's because we're traumatized, right? We are traumatized. Now, check this out, okay? What happens that confuses people, though, and what I think is the actual answer, because I've always been more progressive. I'm always going more progressive. Again, not politically, philosophically, okay? What happened was, and I'm so autistic, is I see good in everybody. And so I'm always trying to figure out, like, are you the kind of good that's going to get better? Or are you the kind of good that only stays this amount of good and never gets better? Okay? Because the dilemma is, how can you be homophobic and still be there for me? Because Republicans do, and I'm generalizing, Republicans in my bubbles do this thing, and leftists in my bubbles do this thing, where the leftists will abandon good people out of fear that they might be bad people. Because if they're bad people and they protect them, then they've done a bad. So better to abandon a good person in case they're a bad person. Okay? And honestly, they might be right. They actually might be right on this, but let's talk about it. Okay? The conservatives, though, they embrace a good person even when they're being a bad person, because they can't handle that the good person they know is a bad person, because they can't deconstruct or contend with the reality, right? So they will embrace good people and bad people, because for them, their bad is good. Is good. Okay? Their bad is good. Right? Okay. So how do we know? How do we discern if somebody is good or bad? And how do we know where they'll end up? How close to good and how close to bad? Okay? What happened in my own personal life is I learned that the Republicans and conservatives would embrace me in my life, but they would also protect predators. What I learned with the leftists is, like, they were so afraid of accidentally protecting a predator, they would abandon everyone. And then I thought to myself, okay, what do I do here? And I realized for Britney, okay, can anyone guess what the answer was for Britney? What saved me from relying so heavily on my bubbles to protect me and validate me? Okay, therapy and philosophy. Okay, therapy plus philosophy. Because the therapy helped me with my mental health and the philosophy helped me with my sense of being, my place in the universe. If you are politically left, but you are never doing philosophical work about what you're doing on the planet, you will never be content and joyful. And as the world burns around you, you will succumb to the fire. If you're only doing philosophy work with no therapy, you'll just end up a homeless, man who rattles off conspiracy theories because you think you know the answers to the universe, or you'll end up Teal Swan. Do you want to end up Teal Swan? No. Okay, do you want to end up thinking you're a Starseed child? No. You need both, people. You need both. You got to do your mental health and your place in the universe help. Okay? Chet says philosophy without therapy is Jordan Peterson. Exactly. Do you listen? You don't want to be me. I know I look great. I know my suits are fashionable, on fleek, as they say. But you don't want to be me. All I do is gorge on meat all day. Thighs, buns. I just be all in there, eating ass. Okay? I gotta go to therapy, but I'm not gonna. Just like Ethan Klein. Ethan, we could go to therapy. Or we could just get on the internet and yell at Marxists. Okay. Yes? Okay. Now, because I want you to understand, politically, Anna and Cenk are a mess. They're just not leftists. Okay? And before I show you this next clip of Francesca from the Habituation Room and the Vanguard, okay? 2 things to remember, and I'm going to try not to look at chat so I don't get distracted. Okay. Cenk and Anna are traumatized fools. Anna, because she was assaulted and not given validation because she took that assault and attacked the wrong group of people. Okay. And then people were upset about it. Cenk, because he's an ignorant old man who literally thinks Charlie Kirk is in any way genuine. Okay, but this brings me to something that happened in my own life. I was a part of a political event and I moderated a debate. And there was a woman there named Marissa J. Johnson. And she gave me a piece of wisdom and advice many, many years ago that truly took me many, many years to implement in my life. And the reason it takes me a long time to implement change in my life is 1, I'm autistic, but 2, it takes me a long time to have that embodied experience. And before I tell you what she told me, it coincides with the whole vegan journey I'm on and the self-love journey that I went on as a younger person. We covered Clara yesterday in live stream, and people said, how can Clara love herself and get plastic surgery? You can love yourself and get plastic surgery. You can love yourself and want to change yourself. But until you love yourself, every time you change yourself will be for the wrong reason. And it will be for the right reason of discovering yourself, but it will feel unfulfilled until you really know yourself, which brings me back to the beginning of the stream about Nathaniel Drew, how no matter how many millions he makes or how many cool houses in France he buys, until he really is fulfilled in his joy, he'll always keep searching. He's looking for something and he's looking for himself, right? Okay, valid. Which coincides with my plant-based journey because I'm plant-based right now. I'm eating plant-based. I've gone on this journey because I did a 30-day vegan challenge. I didn't really think I was going to go vegan, but I'm not vegan, right? Because philosophically, veganism is a belief that animals aren't here for our own exploitation or labor. And I'm not there yet. I'm not sure how I think about it. I'm working on it. And you would think to yourself, well, why can't you just know? Because it's a journey. Okay, it's a journey. And the dilemma with the journey is that it takes a long time and the world will suffer because we are suffering to figure ourselves out. Because in the meantime of me figuring it out, I still have to show up in the world and share my opinions. And this is why I private a lot of my content, because while I was on that journey, I had a lot of really bad takes. And I probably have a few bad takes right now that I will private or change in the future. That's why I say, if I said it 6 months ago, ask me again, because I might be outdated, right? So, okay. So Marissa said to me, we're at a restaurant in Seattle, I was eating bone broth. Okay. I had like $2 in my bank account and all I could afford on that menu was bone broth. I was struggling with my life. I was struggling financially. I was struggling with everything that I was doing. I was doing YouTube full time, but very badly. And it was right before another break. Okay. I was still one more break away from coming back to doing this full time for real. So now I've been doing this successfully for 5 years, making pretty damn good money, doing good fucking work. Okay. But this last break was just about around the corner. And Marissa and I were talking about this event we had been engaging with, and these white men, these centristy, pandering to the right, kind of libs, these libs, okay? And she said to me, why are you still working so hard to work with these people who are never going to change? And what Marissa didn't know at the time is that she wasn't talking to political Britney, or maybe she did know. She was talking to that little girl that had been working her whole life to get her parents to understand her when they never would. 65 years later, and my parents still haven't gotten it. And you know what my partner said yesterday to me in the kitchen? And I looked at him and I was like, he said, I don't know if I really want to meet your parents. And I said, what? And he said, I don't know if I really want to meet anybody who hates you that much. And I was like, oh. And he was like, they hate gay people, so they hate you. And I don't know if I really want to meet somebody who hates you. And I was like, okay, listen, okay? Listen. There's something so true about that. And yet, my one skill in life is that I can see the good in even the worst people. And there's something that keeps me going, that wants to dedicate my life to that thing. And so I won't stop. Okay? Chet says, I love your wife. I love her too, bros. I love her too. But she's right. Like, and yet, I really think my life, everything I've wanted to do since I was a kid, has been dedicating to exposing the good in the bad. And I think a part of it is because my hope is predicated on that good. And as I look for it, I will continue to be wrong about bad people because I see the good in them. But I want to believe the good I see in them is really, really important. You know? So you guys know, I like a lot of people. Yesterday on stream, I said, oh, I used to like people's like character, but I didn't mean their character in terms of like their values. I meant like the person they're playing on the internet, because I like the way it hit my brain, but I disagree with them. And that's really hard for people, right? So Francesca has this show called The Bitchuation Room. I hate that name. I think it is so misogynistic. I fucking hate it. I really like Francesca, but I also like her less than I like Taylor Lorenz. You know? But there's something about Francesca that makes me enjoy watching her show. But do I absolutely die inside when I hear The Bitchuation Room or I hear the way she engages in politics? Yeah, sometimes. But I also have to remember that Francesca is showing up on a very aggro internet that is engaging with her in a very aggro way. And so with this interview she does with the Vanguards is very eye-opening. And I watched the whole thing. I watched the one that we did with Olay and Francesca. And in this one, I also don't like the Vanguards. I don't watch them. I tried. I watched like 10 or 20 of their videos. I don't remember, because I usually try to give people a chance. I just can't get into them. And it's because they remind me of Destiny. But they also hate Destiny. And I remember giving Destiny as many chances as I did because he swore to God he was working on it, right? His ex-wife and him would come to me, say, Britt, we're working on it. We're working on it. So who was I to condemn somebody who was working on it? But the dilemma politically that I see between the Destiny ilk and the Vanguards is they both say the same thing about engaging with Republicans. We should go as low as them. The Democrats should go as low as Republicans in order to win. See how politics is about winning? I'm not interested. But listen to this discourse about showing up on the internet or playing a role on the internet or knowing your place, right? And I think this is what's really interesting is like, I can still watch. I don't hate them as people. I don't like the work they produce, which is different. I don't like the work the Vanguard produces, but I have no opinion about them as people. I don't know them. I like the work Francesca produces, but I don't have any opinion on her as a person. I don't know her. Right? And that's the thing I want people to understand is like, when we examine life in the world around us, right? Okay, my parents, I don't like their opinions on politics, but I like them as people. But I like them as people in the sense that I like their consciousness. You cannot in any way understand how much I love my parents. They're funny, they're talented, they're giving, they're charitable. They're so warm, okay? They're so interesting. And at the same time, they're also incredibly rude, very blunt, obnoxious, lacking in compassion. They're both of those things. When I'm in a room and my parents are at their best, oh my God, they are the funniest people. They are so fun. You will die laughing. You will literally leave my parents' house thinking, man, I wish I could be adopted by them. But if you get them on one of their least compassionate days, you will wish that they'd end up in the downstairs place. Okay? So I need you to understand that for me as a person, when I'm observing mankind and people, I'm observing them in a flexible state that allows me to move with the wind and allows me to meet people where they are, because I don't want to be so rigid that I lose the opportunity. And yet, can I watch a man on the internet, criticize him and say, no, I do not want to engage with you? You know how many men have tried? How many boys show up in my chat going, you want to debate me? No. And they're like, what the heck? Because then I don't have to. I don't have to be flexible with those people because I've already done it enough with people like them. But when I see a new person with a new problem, I want to do it. So what Marissa said to me, why are you making space for these people that are never going to change no matter how much you meet them where they're at? What Brittany took from that, what Brittany has been implementing for the last many years, probably 6-7 years. I don't remember when she said that to me, forever ago. Trying to figure that out. What I've learned and what I'm still learning is how to be good to people when they're bad and how to be open with boundaries, but to be, to learn discernment, to have the wisdom, right? So before I go on to this video, chat says, interesting. Do they hate you or hate the things they associate with you, but not you yourself? I don't think they hate me, the consciousness, right? I don't, but they don't see me enough to love me, but they do love me. I think I see my parents enough to love them, but not like them all the time. But I think my parents don't see me enough to love all of me, but they love parts of me. They love me as their daughter, but they are trapped in seeing me as a version of myself that doesn't quite exist. So I think they struggle to love a part of, but they really do love me. You can't, it really is. But they're going through their own internal struggles, their own battles with reality, right? Their kids being gay is like a burden Christ gave them. Which is why we talk about, is it better for the world not to be religious? It's better for the world to be introspective. It's better for the world to deconstruct. It's better for the world to actually know they're flawed. It's better for all of us to know that we're wrong. It's better for all of us to know that we're right. It's not about should they be religious. It's about whether or not they still need to work on themselves. Okay? I saw a comment, but now I can't find it. I saw a comment I really wanted to talk about. Damn it, I don't know where it went. Okay, let's watch this clip and then we'll dissect it together because I have so much to say about it. This is Francesca on the left, and these are the Vanguards on the right.
This week, you and the Vanguard have been proven so right in all of the videos that you do. And yet, Cenk and Anna continue down this line that somehow the right has a lot to, that we must resuscitate them, we must reach out to them. Some of my favorite parts of your show, Zach, are when you just kind of you just go off. And if you could just explain, and both of you, but But Zach, just explain to me like why you see this as a dangerous path. Like what is wrong with reaching out to the so-called like right-wing populist anti-war people?
Well, it's tough, right? And like obviously when we're on it, like if you run into me on the street, I'm not gonna scream and holler if we have like a disagreement. I always like to tell people that like I am not a crazy person, but I do kind of play one on YouTube. But
Pause. Very important. That's true for everybody online. Like I always say, you know, politically, my opinions aren't about people. If I meet you in the street, like I'm going to be very nice to you. I'm going to be there for you. Like I'm a good neighbor, but I come on stream and I give my opinions because on stream, I'm not your neighbor. I am a content creator.
I think that the reality is that this is high stakes stuff, right? And so Gavin and I, we come out here and we're Silly and Billy, we're stoner bros. I've known Gavin since 5th grade, right? So we have this rapport together that will never be recreated with any other dynamic, right? We're like each other's pals. You know what I mean? It's like, you mentioned it when we first came on here. It's like, how do you guys have the rapport that you have? How do you have the ability to do this show? It's because we're homies, right? We've been best friends. And I would never have had the confidence or any of that to come out here and scream and hoot and holler and do all this stuff if I had to do it by myself. I was never going to set up a YouTube camera and do this by myself. So for as much as I like to hoot and holler, it like Gavin was the one that kind of like was like, here's something to hoot and holler about. So it's like it's a perfect symbiotic relationship. It was like, hey bro, this is really tough. Have you heard about this? And I was like, no, I've never fucking heard about this, but I want to scream forever. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of our model.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also think that you guys have very articulately I think you guys have very articulately broken down like why it is dangerous to do this. Like that you basically say like the importance of this moment when it comes to like the people who are anti-war is that the right is actually taking leftist talking points, they're laundering it and they're selling it to their base and their listeners, and that it is our job to tell them and to like basically out-organize them, right?
This is very interesting too, because my parents are conservatives, but they flip-flop all the time about we should have gone into Iraq. We should have gone into Iraq. We shouldn't have gotten. We're from Iraq. My parents are from Iraq. We're Assyrian, right? Like we're from Iraq. So my parents are always like, we shouldn't have gone there. We should have gone there. We should have, because they at first thought it as a liberation for the Iraqi people. And then they saw it as like murdering the Iraqi people. But then when it comes to the new stuff happening, it's very confusing because they're just pro-Trump. And so that's the dilemma. It's like they're still going to vote Trump. They're still going to vote Republican. They like to brag like long life conservative. Maybe not Republicans because, you know, there's a whole infighting in conservative bubbles of like, I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative. You know, that's like a whole thing. So, you know, yeah, Chet says they can't deconstruct. They can't deconstruct. My parents fundamentally struggle to deconstruct. And it's because deconstruction might lead to a real change. Everyone struggles to deconstruct, right? It's why the world is the way that it is. It's because we generally struggle to deconstruct because we have to change our whole life. Like, and that's why people have to understand that I encourage you to deconstruct, but the reason philosophy is so scary to people is because it's not as easy as politics. See, politics is easy. Win, lose, right, wrong, bad guy, good guy. Philosophy is the gray, and philosophy is the deeper meaning. Politics is the surface level, and philosophy is the why, because politics comes secondary to philosophy. Like politics is the system and philosophy explains it, but nobody wants to do the philosophy because like they're too busy fighting the war. But like, why is there even a war? Like, why are we even in the war? Oh, well, because this political person went into this political, no. Why are we fighting? Oh, because this person 20 years ago went to this country. No. Why are humans fighting each other? And then they'll just like look at you like, what do you know what I mean? And I'm just saying, okay, we want to know the reason we even exist in the first place. But some people feel like if you spend that time figuring out why you exist in the first place, you might not get anything done. But everything that's getting done is because people have already decided why we exist in the first place. Every war, every reason to do capitalism, every reason to do slavery, every reason is because people already think they have the answer. Every bad thing that happens in life is from people who definitely think they have the answer. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. Okay?
To like get them over to our side rather and understand that like actually these people are all paid for by billionaires. They're not actually, you know, so-called anti-war, and also to get Democrats to wake up about how the right is eating their lunch when it comes to taking this, you know, so-called isolationist lane. So I don't know, please tell me more about that, because I do feel like we see Cenk and Anna specifically doing this kind of thing and laundering a Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Greene was on with an interview with Cenk, and it was incredibly softball.
Yeah, so Marjorie Taylor Greene went on the Young Turks for a crazy, embarrassing softball interview where she tee-heed with him, and they kind of mocked John Iadarola, something that he then later had to come out and be like, I don't approve of this, and it was embarrassing for him clearly. So that happened, but in the same month, they didn't mention Zohran Mandami once, not until he won, of course. Then they wanted to take credit for it and be like, oh, see, this is proof of everything we've been saying, when in reality it was the opposite. Zohran called Donald Trump a fascist and called MAGA a fascist movement, despite the fact that Cenk has been out here, scolding every leftist on the block for doing exactly that and said, what, you think that's a good way to win voters? You think that's a good way to win voters? You called them.
Okay, so this is interesting because I tried to apply this philosophically and failed horribly. When I interviewed Sneeko and I softballed him, I was trying to have a YouTube channel where I could talk to people and not force them to think my way. I was trying to run a channel where I didn't make prescriptions, and I still don't. I'm pretty good at that. But I was running a channel where I would hang out with Abba and Preach or a Destiny character or somebody and try to see their humanity. And I talked to really horrible people, right? I talked to Lauren Southern, I talked to really horrible people, but I was hoping to expose the humanity of the situation. But what I realized later on was that the same people that were mad, Abba and Preach, Destiny, that I went soft on Sneeko, also didn't appreciate me going harder on them. They wanted me to go hard on Sneeko, but they didn't want me to go hard on them because they think they're good people. And they are good people in the sense that all of us are good people. But if all of us are good people, is nobody a good person? Like, Destiny is a very bad man. He's a very bad human, right? Now, at the time when I was doing these things, I didn't know all the horrible things he had done, right? And now we know, right? And he gets worse and worse every day, of course. But even with Abba and Preach, like, yeah, they're good people, but also they're like kind of transphobic and they're homophobic and they're all these things. So if I was going to go hard on Sneeko, I was going to go hard on them. Even when I go hard on Hassan and people get mad at me, like, when are you going to get it through your skulls? All men suffer from misogyny. All women suffer from internalized misogyny. All of us have problems. All of us have flaws. And it's because they're just exhausted. We're exhausted. Can't somebody just be a good person? Yeah. It's probably not a streamer. It's probably not us. But also, yeah, the best, they're plenty good enough. I certainly think I'm a good person, obviously. But I think I'm a good person, and I explain that process, right, of why. But I also explain where I failed and where I've put bad information out into the world, or I've been too soft on bad people, which in ways makes me bad. And that's hard, because if I'm here to meet people where they are, then how am I going to go hard on them, right? So Cenk and all these other people, they're like, we got to meet them where they are. We got to see our commonality. We got to convince them we have more in common than not. Yeah, that's a really naive sentiment made with the wrong people. That sentiment should be made with people that are open-minded and willing to change, not with people that like need an excuse not to kill you in the street. Not with people that are always going to look for a reason to take away your civil rights. I'm happy to play nice with absolutely everybody because it coincides with my values. I'm happy to be kind to everybody because it coincides with my values. But if you asked me, Brittany, what do you really think about my values? Well, then we're probably going to have a really intense conversation about how we disagree. Right? Chad says, I don't think all people can be good people, but all people are also not bad people. Are we talking about actions taken? Those can be good and bad in people. I need to ruminate on this. This is the philosophical quandary of what it means to be a person. This is the philosophical quandary in what it means to be good and bad. Good and bad are constructs created by culture. They're not rooted in objectiveness. They're not rooted in objectivity, right? And so when you think about it from that perspective, you have to think about, how do we zoom out? How do we have the conversation? Guys, I see that you guys say the stream is buffering. It's probably YouTube. Nothing I can do about that. So fingers crossed, YouTube gets their shit together. Okay. You guys can always watch this back later, but this is why it is hard, because this is why radical acceptance is difficult. Chet says, I do believe we are all good and bad, in quotations. Well, here's the thing. If everyone thinks they're a good person, what does it mean to be good? And for all the people who are bad people and think they're bad people, how many of those people just need therapy? You know? And that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it isn't this simple. In the context we're engaging with, we can easily say good or bad. Okay? But I think the dilemma is like, we don't know what our values are. Okay, so this comment I got on YouTube, let me go back to it. This chatter inspired me to have this thought. They said, Anna admitted they're not left. It's not infighting. Anna said to Cenk, well, you're not really a leftist. They want to be left, but they don't want to be a leftist. And then this person said, although to be honest, I don't see it as a matter of winning in politics, but betrayal. Betrayal is an interesting word because Anna and Cenk aren't betraying anything. These were always their values. They just didn't know it. Anna, it's easy to think you're a good person or that your values are more left or that your values are XYZ until you're actually given a circumstance in which you have to act on those values. So it's easy to say, I don't believe in violence until you're in a situation where you have to be violent to survive. It's really easy to sit there in a situation and say, I value consent until you're recording people without their consent and sharing videos with people. That's a Destiny jab. It's easy for Destiny to say he's pro-consent until he's serial cheating. Right? It's easy for you to say you care about consent. But so again, for me, what I look forward to is seeing what people do in the moment. There is no reason, or it is really valid for people over the years to have seen my content and seen me interacting with a Sneako and an Abba and a Destiny and to be upset with me. That was so fucking valid of you. It was valid for you as an audience. Right? It's none of your business how I, Brittany, grow as a person, but as a content creator, you were so valid in unsubscribing during that era of my life. I obviously needed to do it as a person. I grew so much from it. And as a content creator, it may be a better one, but it is very valid for an audience to see me interacting with three of like, maybe not the greatest people on the internet and say, maybe this isn't the person I want to watch. That is so valid. And I want you to know that. And that's the problem is when we're viewing content creators, we're also watching people grow. Hassan was friends with Destiny. Hassan was nice to Asmin. Hassan has also interacted with the worst people on the internet. Hassan was on Theo Von, right? So Hassan has also interacted with these people, right? It's interesting, though, that when his audience goes after him, because it's so large, he doesn't get as much scrutiny in terms of ratio as like a smaller content creator. So the jab, it feels bigger, but he was also trying to do something, which was build that bridge, just like Cenk. So when Hassan tries to build the bridge, he does it with an Asmin and a Theo. When Cenk does it, he does it with, you know what I mean? The worst people you know, Charlie Kirk and so on. And that's the difference. So Hassan, that's why he gets criticism from his leftist audience, because they're like, why are you even talking to these people? But that's because in politics, there's this idea that you've got to meet people in the middle. That's a whole Democrat Republicans getting together. When I was younger, we had Hannity and Combs on TV on Fox News. And it'd be like the left and the right talking it through so they can agree to disagree, but that never really happens. You know? Chad says, but don't you think it's important to win by engaging in politics as all of our rights are predicated upon it? Isn't it necessary that we do try to win despite our philosophical endeavors? When you're playing the political game, yes. But your life, your personal life is not political. You can make your life political, but it doesn't have to be, because a political game is something you engage with, but it isn't supposed to be your life, right? Right? Chet says Hassan is mostly going for the audience, not for Theo or Asmin. Yes, but we know that, Habibi. Just like Cenk and Anna aren't going for Charlie Kirk, they're going for his audience. That's what Cenk is trying to say. He's saying, I'm not going for these people. I'm trying to get the voters on my side. It's the same thing, different audiences. I agree with you. But that's the point I am trying to make. It's not different. It just feels different because you're thinking, why Charlie Kirk's audience? And Hassan's thinking, why not Asmin's? Chat says Cenk and Anna are going for the money. I disagree. I think they're not grifters. I think they're capitalists who believe what they're saying. But I think they are capitalists, so they are going for the money. But they're not money motivated like an entrepreneur who's selling out. I don't think they're grifting. I think they're traumatized. I think they're stupid. I think they're naive, right? I think they're actually naive. But I think everybody is traumatized. And the question is how is your trauma showing up today? So yes, if you're playing the political game, let's do politics. Let's win that election. Let's, bring in the votes. Let's talk about it. Every opinion you have is your moment, You're a present expression of what you think is true. And that's why I say try not to do good every day, try to do less bad. Because you're not a bad person for being in the moment and expressing what you think is true in that moment, even if it's not going to be true later. And it's okay as an audience for you to say, I don't like what you're saying at this area of your life. Maybe I'll check it in a few years, or maybe I'll give up on you totally. So like, you are allowed to look at content creators and be critical. You can look at me and be critical. 1000% your prerogative. I believe in this. Do this. I do this, right? I look at Francesca and I think, why are you naming your shit the Bitchuration Room? How is that fucking not misogynistic? And that's the dilemma, right? Right? And so it's one of those things where when we have these conversations and we're going back and forth about these conversations, I am always trying to see who's asking me a question, what is the situation, and trying to give input on that situation, which is always separate from my own life as well. I think like when I get angry when I get frustrated that her name is Bitchuation Room, it's not about Francesca the person. It's about the brand. When I see Sabrina Carpenter's album, it's not Sabrina Carpenter I'm mad at the person. I'm mad at her company, the brand, the manager, the label. Why is this your brand? Right? Chet says, but if your existence is inherently political, but what if your existence is inherently political? I'm a dark-skinned Black woman with locks and people make assumptions about me all the time. I don't get peace. My life is political. When I say your life, I don't mean your relationship with people. So this is introspection versus extrospection. Okay. So you're right that as a Black woman with locks, the world is going to see you specifically. This is your extrospection. This is your introspection. How you see yourself is your life. Okay. Your life is impacted by the external, the extrospection, but it's your job to realize this is outside of you. This is not you. You are not political. You exist outside of this. Okay? You exist over here. This is you right here. Okay? But what the world does is it convinces you, you are this. You are not this. This is the falsehood. This is the lack of introspection, deconstruction. Okay? This is you right here, baby. This beautiful, independent, beautiful consciousness that exists in the whole universe. You, this lovely miracle that ended up in existence. You, this lovely consciousness that exists right now. This is you. Look at that. Okay? And you get to exist separate from this bullshit right here. This bullshit, though, sadly, it gets on all of our shoes. We step in it. We smell like shit. We take it home with us. And it's like, fuck. And what I want you to do is ask yourself, who am I in relation to myself, the internal, and who am I in relation to the world, external? Okay? To the best of your ability, wipe the shit off your shoes before you come in the house. But know that somehow you will always end up bringing some of it inside. But do your best, okay? Maybe leave the shitty shoes at the door and change into slippers and come into the house. Does the metaphor make sense? You know? So the world makes our life political because human beings evolved to create constructs of politics for domination. Okay? But you are so much more than how people perceive you. You are so much more than that. You will always be more than that. Even if you don't believe it in the moment, or even if they convince you otherwise, because that's also their journey. They don't know that they exist outside of the bubbles, outside of these bubbles. They exist in their own. Like, the world is suffering. Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk and Trump, they are so externally validated. They don't know. They also are an independent, beautiful consciousness who exists on a floating planet. They don't know. They literally think all of their life is this thing. This little superficial fucking game they're playing. You think that's all of life? Is this superficial, boring ass, stupid game you're playing? Do you know what I'm saying? Chet says you kind of sound like a pastor right now. Thank you. Donate to the gays, bros. Donate to the trans. Donate to the LGBTQIAs. That's the only thing that matters, okay? Chet said I'm literally experiencing happy tears. Let's go. Let's go, okay? You exist outside of these constructs. but we are definitely impacted by the constructs, which is why we have to be wise in our suffering, because the world is suffering. It is so dysfunctional. But as the world melts around us, girls, stay focused so we don't melt along with it. Okay? So we don't melt along with it. All right, let's go back to the video. This is Francesca and the Vanguards.
Trump a fascist. Well,
Yes.
Zoran just, completely disobeyed you. He completely, followed his own path, which was that of a true leftist instead of a mealy-mouthed, panderer to a fascist right-wing movement. And he succeeded. And I think that, that just says everything. Cenk talking to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Cenk hyping up right-wingers in the same month that he doesn't even mention the guy who's doing everything him and Anna said not to do, but succeeding anyway, only to then turn around and try to take credit for it. I mean, that's exactly everything you need to know about the Young Turks at this point in time. And yeah, I think that, channels like ours, part of the reason why we do what we do is because we understand YouTube as a platform. And, like after Anna Kasparian started to make her right-wing turn specifically, I started to see a lot of videos popping up, right, of these kind of right-wing.
And by the way, like I said yesterday, Hassan, me, you, all of us could be them one day. As the world moves more progressive, liberals will feel more conservative because that's how the trajectory works. So Hassan could be a conservative one day. Because if you don't keep deconstructing and you don't keep introspecting and you don't keep, you know what I mean? You will end up the new conservative. That's why Cenk and Anna feel conservative, because now they're associating with conservatives, they're engaging with them, but they think the left has gone too far. The left hasn't gone far enough. We haven't even gone far enough. And the far enough is not communism. The far enough is the deconstruction from the idea that we exist within systems. We have systems that are predicated on our flaws and on our dysfunction. We should have systems that are predicated on our health, but we don't. We don't actually know yet as a species what it is to exist as a whole in systems that are primarily about our health. So we aren't even there yet, girlies. Get another 5,000 years. Give it another 2,000 years and we can start having conversations. But we are doing the work now for those people later. But you know what I mean? Like, okay. Chet says, love your earrings. Go to my Instagram, find Inspired by Mia. She's an amazing creative. She makes the most beautiful earrings. She's a Black woman. She's beautiful. She's fabulous. She's everything. She's life. Okay. Makes beautiful earrings. I buy all of her earrings. I want to buy so many more. The dream. The dream. I can't wait to buy all of her earrings one day. All of them. They're so beautiful. But if you like my earrings, a lot of the earrings I wear are from her.
Drama farming YouTube channels, and they were all giving her credit, and they were all trying to hype her up and say, look at this, it's so awesome, she's standing up against all these SJWs and all these idiots on the left, and Anna's our queen and all this. And there's like 30 of those videos made every week or something, at least when she was really starting out. A lot of lefties, they feel above that kind of content. They feel like, oh, we're too serious, we have to talk about facts, and we have to talk about war, and like we can't get in the
Chad said deconstruction is always bad for the cohesive society until it's not. If we deconstructed in the name of health and happiness, it would benefit society as a whole. But because right now we can only deconstruct as individuals, it tends to create a rift in the cohesiveness of the collective. But once the collective is on a pathway to look for health and happiness and joy, real deconstruction, a real relationship outside of like gender and race and all the constructs that oppression and all the bullshit, okay? Then deconstruction is only going to be good. Then it's going to be something we teach our kids. Then it's going to be great for society. But right now we have to do the work. We have to be the ones to say like, I'm going to deconstruct that, but also know that like nothing I do right now, right, will quite benefit people who are existing right now. Right?
Gutter. We can't get into this crazy realm of drama. I think that's part of the reason why Donald Trump beat us. I think that's part of the reason why MAGA won. The right wing is not afraid to meet people where they're at and to get them involved in politics by any way necessary, which might include that hook of drama, which might include that tabloid kind of, sheen to it all. So, I've said a lot there, but I think that kind of answers your question, hopefully.
Yeah, the spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Yeah, well, I mean, and especially when, we can point out how ridiculous things like this are. So here's
listen to this. This is crazy.
Charlie Kirk on the Zoran win. 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. Clear Islamophobic, like insanity. And Cenk is one of the first people to respond and saying, okay,
Wait, look. Charlie Kirk says 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. Okay, fucked up. Really, really Islamophobic, racist, fucked up bullshit. Not good, right? This is a fucked up thing to say out loud. And what is Jank's reaction to this? Girls.
Like insanity. And Jank is the first, like one of the first people to respond and saying, okay, other than being a dick thing to say, do you get that this makes no sense? First, the social thing is not connected to the Muslim thing. Second, there are a couple billion Muslims. Please tell me you understand that some of them are plumbers, accountants, and dentists. Please tell me you understand there's a range of humanity within each religion. A range of humanity? Please, some people are angels and others do terrible things in each religion, in each nation. The idea that all Muslims would be like the terrorists of 9/11 is such an unimaginable thought. And if you knew any, because then you would know that they're grandmothers who give milk and cookies to their grandkids. I mean, it's just like on and on and on. Charlie, I can call you a bigot. That's easy, but I'm not sure it solves anything. Instead, I'm sure at the cost of great derision from my own side, I'm going to ask you to think it through and see if it still makes sense. Your call.
Okay. First of all, cringe. It's like, I understand this thought when you're young and you haven't figured it out, but when you're old and you're this naive, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish? Right? Chet says, my issue with the deconstruction is bad for society argument is that our constructs are bad for our society. So worst case, we move from bad to a different bad. Exactly. Like, you know, the whole construct over like a nuclear family, they say it's better for society, but it's like literally not. It never has been. It's never worked. That's why we keep challenging the system. We keep acting like the nuclear family ever worked. It's never worked. Thank you. Okay.
At the cost of my, and then I just wrote, bark, 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 please bark, bark. Jank once again at the wrong tree.
Okay. I personally think bad of anybody who engages in social media this way. So I think bad of Francesca. I would have thought better of her if she just said it on her own. But because she's out here on a blue sky or on Twitter and arguing with people, that makes me think bad of you. But not like you're a bad person. But because I think the lowest of the low engage in Twitter or X, or I think the lowest of the low are fighting on X. And you think like you're going to save the world. But this is politics, baby. Politics is drama. Elon and Trump, Twitter personified. Like, that's what I'm trying to say is like, I like Francesca and everything, but this makes me think of her like, why are you engaging like boys do? Because she's in a boy's world, right? Okay. Why is Jank doing what he's doing? Because he's naive. He literally thinks like, if I'm just nice to people and kind, they'll be better. Here's what I've learned. You should be kind to people without requiring them to be better. You should just be good to people, even if they aren't good people. You know, like you should just be a good person and not expect anything back. And you're allowed to, while being a good person, put your spoons in an appropriate place. So if you're engaging in kindness with people that you feel like it's not worth your time, go engage with somebody else. But I think you should just be good, right? Chad says, I wonder, because I'm not paying for membership anymore, is Brittany doesn't engage with my questions? Okay. Is that what's happening? Because or do you think that maybe I've just been distracted by the fact that there's a lot of comments in chat and I'm a person and I can't keep up with it, but also like maybe your questions will derail the conversation and I don't want to talk about it because I'm here making a video that's themed, right? It's not I've obviously been answering questions in chat that have been paid members. I love you guys, but sometimes you ask questions that are going to derail and I'm running a show here. So I'm also trying not to derail. You know what I mean? But I understand why you said that, because some people do prioritize memberships, which makes sense. They should get a priority in a sense because they're paying. But I promise you, I'm not doing that. I'm just literally focused on the theme today, girlies. Okay, so Francesca engages on X. Let's continue the video.
Like, he's just, again, he's barking up this wrong tree to try and break bread with these fools. And it's very pathetic because these are open Islamophobes. And you know what? Where they get paid when they do the Islamophobia. They get paid when they call him a jihadist. They get paid when they hammer down on the fact that he's a socialist. So tell me what you think is paying Jank. Like you've talked about your theories about why they're doing some of the sort of, and they are not the same. And I really bristle at the Anna and Jank being the same because they are not, but they even call themselves we. They speak in we all the time, especially Jank.
They're like a little married team. They are like a little like brother sister team.
But is there a profit motive here?
Well, I think that it's kind of like a double-edged sword,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what they've done is they've kind of set them up on the wrong path, and they're kind of continuing to punch it at a brick wall. So you mentioned the financial woes. I'll give everybody the TLDR. I bring it up all the time.
This is
just because
so
I think it's really
interesting.
important,
Listen.
Right? They are not an independent company. They're in no way independent media. They have not been independent media in over a decade, right? When somebody comes out and they say, I'm not independent, or I'm independent media, I'm not corporate backed, that means they've never done venture capital funding. That means that they could be doing selective ad reads that are, something that they screen. And, Francesca, you do a great job of that. The Majority Report does a great job of that, right? There's a way to do it
Shout out the Majority Report.
ethically and responsibly. You don't just take whoever's money wants to invest in your corporation. So they took a bunch of money from this guy, Buddy Roemer. He's a Republican. You can Google him. He'll come up. They took money from 3L Capital, which has a bunch of cryptocurrency connections with this guy, Naval Ravikant.
This is so interesting. But pause. Chat says you are taking Cenk too seriously. He's playing a character, the liberal-minded person that gets humiliated by conservatives, so their audience thinks I'm on the right side, smart side. Okay. Cenk doesn't exist outside of his biological experience and the fact that he's an evolved human on a planet. And my work is pointing that out. I am talking bigger picture here. You are focused on the micro, and I'm talking about the macro. So I see what you're saying, but like you said, like any liberal that goes on Fox to end, agree with Fox. Yes. So yes, Cenk is doing this thing where he's trying to be like, look, I'm just like you. And then he thinks he's going to make friends with them, and then they're going to be convinced. Okay. He's looking for money. He's looking for a lot of things, but he is a symptom of the journey of being a person. I don't think he's some perfect grifter that doesn't believe anything he's saying. I think he literally, when he screams at Kyle Kulinski and he says, I'm on the left, I'm on the left. He really does think he's on the left. The same way Kidology thinks she's a leftist, or Ethan wants to be a leftist, but they don't actually engage in leftist beliefs. You want the title without the belief, which is like being vegan and thinking it's a diet. Veganism isn't a diet. It's a philosophy. So when people say like, oh, I was vegan and now I'm not vegan, some people say, well, you were never vegan. Because if you were vegan, it meant that you actually understood fundamentally that animals aren't on the planet for our own exploitation and labor. And then you changed your mind and decided, actually, animals are here for our labor and exploitation. And I'm saying, when you look at the bigger picture of everything, the question is, what is the person's experience with their life? What is it? Because it's easy to say everybody's a grifter, and I do think there are so many grifters. But I think that underneath every grifter is a real person going through it. Like every grifter is still like a traumatized person. And that's what we're talking about, right? Chet says, yeah, he lies to himself. He sells bullshit and buys bullshit like most bad people. I find your analysis reductive, but I appreciate the engagement. Okay. Chet says, I think the fact that he went from a conservative to more left-leaning, he feels like the left moved, but it's just the same. He wasn't really leftist at heart. Yeah, I think he wanted the credit of being a leftist, but never really became one. And so his audience feels betrayed because they were also not really leftist. They were engaging with TYT because I never was a big fan of TYT. I was always like a TYT, like on occasion watcher, but I was never like a hardcore TYT fan because they always felt too centrist for me. I always just thought they lacked leftist, like, philosophical critique. Like, I always felt like they were lacking. But people love them. And I was like, okay. But I always felt like liberals like them. So for me, they're just like Democrats. Do you know what I'm saying? So I always question their audience. I don't even believe the audience was actually ever really left. I always thought the audience was probably mostly liberal. But, that's okay. It's a journey.
Ravikant, which I think people should Google because he's a shady figure as well. All of the companies, or I guess firms rather, venture capital.
The same way I feel about people who watch Destiny, like you're not a leftist, you're a liberal. Same thing I feel about a little bit like about this idea of when you engage in political discourse and you're like, we have to go as low as the Republicans. We have to fight fire with fire. That doesn't feel very progressive to me. That feels like what liberals do, which is why I don't like the vanguards. Because even though the vanguards feel like they're leftist, I feel like they fight like liberals. and I don't like it. And also they're white men. And also it doesn't feel very feminist or philosophical. I don't trust it.
That invested in the Young Turks, they're just regular ass firms that are going to invest in anything innocuous. Like one of them sells a bunch of dick pills on this platform called Row. Another one is invested in Bird, the scooter that terrorized everybody. Like Gavin and I both got damn near hospitalized riding those things around. Go Puff. These are the kind of people that they're taking their money from, right? Which is fine if we were talking about, oh, I'm going to do a show on MSNBC, which is owned by Peacock. That's just kind of what you expect. You know, there's going to be big money behind it. You know.
Yeah, chat says, is Jake moving off emotion, guys' strategy? Is that what you mean by traumatized? Yeah, like he thinks he's playing 4D chess, but he's actually just being tricked and utilized by the Republicans to push their agenda. But he thinks because he's so traumatized that he's like really doing something, and the Republicans are laughing about him like when he's not around. Like the Republicans are 100% like, what a fucking idiot. And Jake is like, I'm really doing stuff. Like, they really like me. Like, Jank is like that kid at school that's like the butt of the joke, but he thinks he's really doing something. And it, you know, I get it. I think that's like a very common experience for some people, but I think like you should think about that. And I think that's why people are mad at him. You know, I think it's why people are mad at him because they're like, why are you playing with these people? They don't care about you. And yeah.
There's going to be a media apparatus. That is the whole point, is that the Young Turks offered an alternative to that, right? And I think Kyle Kalinske always brings that home very well. Like, Kyle's never done an ad read, never taken a phone call with an advertiser. He was like, I've never needed to. Before Adpocalypse, it was way easier to make a living on YouTube. After Adpocalypse, I was already big enough. I had an audience of people that were ready to like sign a check for my Patreon, right? So he never went through it, but it's an alternative to that. You're offering somebody something that's different than corporate media, right? And he's lied about that constantly. He then went on and has renamed the People's Studio, right, which they financed with $400,000 in small dollar donations in 2013 to 2014. It was over 3,600 small moms, grandpas, uncles, cousins, nephews, people who listened to the Young Turks, wrote $36 checks and sent it in on a dream that maybe I would have a news network that looked, you know, official, that I could send to my uncle, that I could send to my next door neighbor and be like, hey, you're being lied to. MSNBC and Fox News don't look legit, or, you know, aren't informing you. I can't send you this guy in his garage that doesn't look legit. I can send you the Young Turks network. So this was their entire model, and they've just pissed all over that. Right now, they've just become any other YouTubers. They're just like basically it's a problem with all across legacy media on YouTube, where these people are used to making money hand over fist. They don't understand that when you're writing political YouTube, like there's going to be highs and lows, and when it's a low time for you, it's going to be a high time for Republicans, and vice versa, right? Well, Cenk couldn't wait out the lull. He had to keep growing. He has
an example of why I don't think Cenk is literally a grifter is because a grifter would know people were laughing at him. The reason I think he's like naive and arrogant and prideful and like all the negative words is because I don't think he actually understands, like, you're not the wise Uncle Iroh. He thinks he's Iroh. Like, he literally thinks he's like, Prince Zuko. He's like, Charlie Kirk, you must drink the tea of wisdom to squash the pride of your father. You know what I mean? Like, he's not that guy. You're not Uncle Iroh, Cenk. You're a fool, you know? And so that's the part of it that I think is getting to people. Now, look, TYT, I don't watch them. I'm not engaging. Like, I might check it out for work or whatever, but like their views are down. People aren't interested. And I think that's rightfully so. But I think the Vanguard makes a really good point here, right? Where I do think people, they said this on Olay. So Olay had Francesca and the Vanguards on as well. And I love her. I love Olay. You want to know who I really love to watch? That girl right there. Like, I just vibes all around. Okay. When I watch her and she's talking about stuff, I feel like she's coming from the most human perspective, like the most non-political yet political perspective in a sense. Like, she's really getting to the root of it, which we're going to end today's stream watching an Olay video. It's going to be great. Okay. Cause I really think she gets to the meat of being a person, you know? And I think that's really interesting. But she said to them, wait, hold on. I've lost my train of thought. Cenk was getting money, and Anna, and they were talking. Oh shoot. I lost my train of thought. What did she said? Is something so good. Wait, I can't think. I read chat and then I got distracted. It was such a good interview though. And it was, oh man, I don't remember now. I'm so sorry, guys. This is such a live stream, right? Oh, my brain is blanking. But either way, whatever she said, it was genius. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is it. I should have taken notes. This is the thing that I find interesting about people. Oh man, I can't remember what she said. I lost my train of thought. Oh, I hate when that happens. If it comes back, it comes back. But what I want to say is like, this is what I think is interesting is, oh, this is what she said. Sorry, pause. She said, thank you, Brittany. She said if they just went solo, her and Francesca were talking. They said if Jank and Anna just went solo, they could have a successful channel. Olay said that her and another girl run their channels and they're doing fine. And if Jank would just do this, it'd be fine. But what Jank did is he built a company. And so he became a corporation. And then he started hanging out with other capitalists. And then he became more capitalistic because he wanted to run a successful broadcasting company, which actually ruined the heart of what they thought TYT was, which is what this Kyle Kalinske kind of fan run, kind of people run, you know, which is why when David Pakman, who I do not watch, was all like, I can't believe my members are leaving. I can't believe we're running out of money. Like, sir, you know, it's like when big content creators start complaining they're not making enough money, but they're bringing in $30,000 a month or $10,000 a month or $15,000 a month. Like, do it by yourself again. Go back to original YouTube and do it by yourself. It's more work, but that was the heart of YouTube. It was the heart of independence, was doing it for the right reason so you wouldn't have to sell out. You know, it was for the right reasons. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't have to sell out to the paycheck. So you wouldn't have to make content you don't believe in for a paycheck. But Jank, I think, is writing on his reputation of being a person who built something, who has employees, that he doesn't want to go back because it will feel like a failure. Instead of thinking, I'm lucky I can still do YouTube as a success. What I look for in my life as a content creator and a creative is being able to be a middle-class content creator who just gets to show up and do this and live within my means. I'm not trying to be a rich YouTuber who has to move to LA. I'm trying to be somebody who has the benefit or the privilege of just being able to work from home. I'll work, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just happy for that. So I think what Jank did and what Olay was pointing out is that like Jank ran into I was used to this much money. I was used to this much status. I want to be successful. But he has to remember that those same people in his sphere that are successful in those ways, they sold out. They're capitalists. So yeah, if you want to fight capitalism, if you want to be in capitalism, if you want to engage in capitalism in such a way that uplifts capitalism as a system, sure, go hang out with PBD. Patrick Bet-David, go ahead, go hang out with him. Mr., you know, basically an MLM, go hang out. But at the end of the day, like, is this who you want to be? Or you want to take a pay cut, give a little humility, and actually do the right thing? But the thing is, was he even on board about doing the right thing to begin with? Was he ever actually left? Or was he always just a liberal? And I know when we grew up, left was liberal, but we know that's not true anymore. So again, as we continue to age, left will mean something specific. Again, we're not progressive enough yet. The world isn't even ready. You know? Chess says, are any of us left? Yeah. I think so, but I think politics, I mean left in terms of philosophy, not politically. Politically, it's stagnant. There's a limitation to how left you can be politically. So philosophically, yeah, some of us are out here being left. And philosophically, again, not outside of structures, outside of systems. When I say left, I mean liberation. I mean caring about society. I mean health. I mean health is wealth, baby. When I say left philosophically, I mean liberation from the chains of prejudice and bigotry that is so ingrained in our biology. I'm not talking about, oh, I'm left, so I'm a communist. Fuck your communism. Fuck your systems. If you are a leftist politically, you will eventually stagnate. If you are left philosophically, you will only ever grow. Because progression is about growth. I'm not interested in becoming a conservative. You know, I saw somebody say, I don't remember who said it, but they made me laugh. They said, I'll become a conservative when everybody's liberated and the default is liberation. And I said, stop, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. That's so funny. Because listen, politics is a reaction to life. It is not life itself. Politics is a construct created for us to cope with existence. Stop coping and actually get down to the root of it all. Okay? All right. Now, before we go on to Olay's video, let's take a 2-second break and we'll come back and watch this because this is one of the many channels that Ole has, but I want to talk about this one because it's how this didn't age well, destroyed media literacy. And I think there's something so human about this topic, and I just know she killed it, even though I haven't really pre-watched it because I want to watch it with you for the first time, but I just know it's going to be good because I love this topic and I think it's so human. Okay, so give me a second, we'll come back and we'll watch it. Let's listen to some Samantha Dragonati. Will I run to the loo? And I'll be right back.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Who is this?
You tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
Why don't you want to talk to me? What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
I only eat popcorn at the movies.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
All right. Pause. Okay, let's go ahead and watch this video. I'm so excited. Give it a like, give it a subscribe. I'll go ahead and share it in the chat. You already know I'm subscribed. All right. Go ahead and watch this video together. I'm stoked. I've been so patient and waiting to watch it with you guys. I'm stoked.
Need to do further research and
Whoops.
The leaves are turning, there's a bracing chill in the air. Plus, there's a whole new crop of female grad students about to put on just enough winter weight to make them needy and vulnerable.
I simply want to fool a girl into thinking this is my apartment so I can nail her once and never have to see her again.
He's a bisexual. Well, I could have told you that, sweetie. He took you ice skating, for God's sake.
Weird thing is, he was so open about it. You know, hi, I'm a bisexual, like, hi, I'm from Colorado or something.
I don't think you're allowed to be bisexual in Colorado.
a lot of my and your favorite shows, movies, and characters have all been hit with the dreaded, this didn't age well. But what if I told you that they aged exactly how they needed to because we need problematic media?
I'm so excited.
When I started law school, I regularly found myself in a room full of all the other 1Ls listening to
I don't want to be that person, but I feel like we're kind of matching today. She's wearing a low-cut blue. I'm wearing a low-cut red. We're basically the Powerpuff Girls.
some speech meant to impart some wisdom on us. And I don't know if this particular nugget of wisdom stood out to any of my classmates, but it lives with me. In one of those speeches, I remember them saying to us that most people are consumers. They just consume whatever they're told, given, or shown uncritically, and they take it all at face value. Most people read an article or look at something and think they know everything they need to know to form an opinion without any further inquiry because they assume they have the full picture. Whereas law school isn't about learning every law, rule, or case. It's not about knowing everything. It's about teaching us to know what we don't know. Teaching us to be able to look at a set of facts, an article, a problem, or a case, and have an idea of what's missing from the picture we're looking at. Or at the very least, least, that there is something missing and that we need to do further research and critical analysis. And that, my friends, is probably the single most important lesson I ever took from any of those lectures. And it hasn't only stayed with me all these years, it's rung truer and truer as I go through life, because every day it becomes clearer and clearer to me that really do not think critically about shit, and everyone is worse off for it. A current example of this is the immediate outrage Sabrina Carpenter's cover for her new single Man Child is receiving from people who didn't think an inch past woman on the ground holding man's leg there could be no deeper explanation than selling subservience to men.
I don't know if it's Twitter brain or if it's this younger generation's current anti-sexuality sentiment, but this is being made into something way bigger than it needs to be. Sabrina wrote a song about how difficult it is to find a grown man who acts like one, and announces an album called Man's Best Friend. The art is obviously a play on women.
I still hate it. I still hate it. I do. I still fucking hate it. I can't. I still hate it. I still think it sucks. And I say this as a sex worker. I just think it sucks. Like, I just think it sucks. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm sorry. I know. I'm just telling you, I think I think it's bad. I think it's bad branding, but you know, whatever.
Being bitches, as is the name Man's Best Friend. And it's also a visualization of a woman in a subservient role, which is often the situation women find themselves unwillingly in. It's satire, and not even the most provocative or evocative form that we've seen in the last 50 years.
The sheer number of times I have found myself explaining the subtext, implications, impact, or deeper meaning of a piece of media only to be met with, it's just a show, it's not that serious, it's just a joke, it's not that deep, you're overthinking.
Okay, autistic much? Literally my whole life, where I'd watch something and I'm like, oh my God, the deeper meaning of this. But that's because I grew up with parents that were like very critical of media, and we would dissect it as a family. And I actually feel like that's so neurodivergent coded, where it's like, I'm sorry, are we not going to dissect the like many layers of psychological analysis that this anime is providing us? But then people are like, it's just an anime. And that's the difference between anime watchers who watch for entertainment and anime watchers that are like, oh my God, the deeper layered meaning of this art. But that's the thing. You don't have to enjoy art that way. You can enjoy art any way you want, superficially or whatever. Like, you can do whatever you want, girlies. My problem, my whole family's problem, is that we're pausers. We like pause. Like, did you see that scene? Did you see the dialogue choice? Do you see the choice of the red heels? This is actually a reference to so-and-so, so-and-so. Like, my partner is the same way. We're like, we pause a show. We're never going to get through this show because we are like pausing it to be like, actually, this choice of lighting is actually called bisexual lighting, brought to prominence by streamers on YouTube. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're very like pause, you know, and everybody's like that, and that's okay. It doesn't make me better or worse, but I'm just going to say this right now. Unless we're in the movie theater, because that's the only place you shouldn't talk. If you're in my house and we're watching something together, I'm going to be monologuing. So you got to tell me before we start the film if I can monologue, because otherwise I got a lot of opinions. Okay?
Thinking it, or some other vapidly incredulous statement that fails to take into consideration the world around us, and the fact that our media, art, and entertainment both reflect and influence the world around us is astounding. It's actually through the creation of my second YouTube channel, Illuminati Pop, where I have a ball making weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV shows, characters, and movies, that I officially came to the conclusion that a lot of motherfuckers have absolutely no idea what media analysis even is, and that's what I'm doing. And that's a serious problem, because if we don't even know what media analysis is, we damn sure don't know why it's important.
I need to let you guys know, I actually don't know what it is as a genre, except I know what it is when I watch it. But like, I don't do media analysis. I do philosophical analysis, which feels different. But I am excited for her to explain this, because I feel like I watch media analysis, but I don't really love the bubble in general. Like, I actually don't watch a lot of media analysis. I like watching people's opinion about media, which I actually do think is different. Yeah.
So we end up missing valuable teaching and learning opportunities that our problematic media provides in exchange for simply writing it off as this didn't age well, because the average person is just consuming their media on a surface level, taking it at face value and making snapshot judgments without any deeper analysis. So combine that with the fact that they're also choosing not to watch media they believe is morally bad or conflicts with their values in some way, because they think the media they consume must be a reflection of their own values, and we arrive at the death of media analysis. Nevertheless, the impacts of propaganda and messaging in media are huge, so we do have to tackle that, and we will. We are going to explore the importance of media analysis, the utility of problematic media, ethical consumerism, moral media consumption, the normalization of bad behaviors and beliefs, the responsibility of creators and consumers, and what I am calling virtue mirroring. And we're going to use some of our favorite shows that didn't age well to do it. And since this whole video is about the death of media analysis, it only makes sense that we start there. So, what is media analysis? Media analysis is the examination of media to understand its message, impact, and role within a broader context. It involves analyzing both the content itself and how it's produced and received. I recently addressed the lack of understanding of media analysis in a video.
I guess with that sense, okay, so maybe it's the level of deconstruction that changes the category.
Called Why Barney Stinson is Perfectly Flawed on my channel Illuminati Pop, because this might be news to some of you, but your girl is a How I Met Your Mother stan. If you have never seen the 2005 sitcom, the premise was simple, but the execution.
Not only did my friends at the time love this show so much, we dressed up in suits and suits. You know how Barney Stinson wears suits? We dressed up and went laser tagging, because that's the whole Barney thing. Is Barney dresses up in a suit and goes to laser tag. That's how engrossed we were in this show, and it was a part of our culture. The way we did jokes, the way we spoke, the way we created memories as a group of friends was through mimicking this show. I'm a millennial, baby.
Was top tier. The protagonist, Ted Mosby, sits his children down at the series outset to tell them the journey of how he met their mother.
Also, my little brother is rewatching How I Met Your Mother, and he's like, Brittany, not only is every character like a little too old to be acting like this, but I can't believe how bad everybody is. And I was like, yeah. He's like, I can't believe it. Like, they're kind of like bad people. I was like, yeah. And that's the thing. Humans are kind of like bad. Humans are kind of like bad. We give human beings way too much credit. And that's the whole theme of today's stream, is like, we give ourselves way too much credit, including the people we think are fighting the good fight right now. We're giving ourselves way too much credit.
Mostly consists of the shenanigans between he and his friends, Robin Scherbatsky, Marshall Erickson, Lily Aldrin, and Barney Stinson. I have been watching How I Met Your Mother on an infinite loop since it ended more than a decade ago, because the show is hilarious. And despite whatever moral judgments I make about the characters, I was invested in each and every one of their lives and relationships. Their friendships felt genuine, their heartbreaks felt real, their milestones felt earned, and everything the showrunners did, down to the things I didn't like, is precisely what's given me and millions of other fans endless material to revisit and discuss all these years later. Yet, whenever I make a video analyzing a character from How I Met Your Mother and make note of any of the character's negative traits or make a negative...
Ooh, and chat says, I wonder how people view It's Always Sunny. And here's the thing. Seinfeld and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia are my two favorite shows because they're actually a show about bad people. Versus How I Met Your Mother is supposed to be a show about good people or flawed people who get better. And this is the difference, right? Like, do people know that Seinfeld is a show about bad people? Like, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's a show about bad people. But How I Met Your Mother, like Marshall and Lily are good people. Barney is the worst of the group, and they even explain his life away with childhood trauma, right? They explain his bad behavior away with childhood trauma. So I love all these shows. I love Seinfeld. I like Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like I watched most of it. I'm a couple seasons behind now, but I've watched a majority of the show. But it's when I watch a show, I'm trying to figure out if the writers also know they're bad people. Oh, Chet says, what about Abbott Elementary? I actually watched a few episodes recently when my sister was in town. We watched it together. So I haven't really watched the show, but I have seen now like 5 episodes. So
negative moral judgment about a character, two things happen. When I call Ted Mosby a romantic terrorist, Robin Scherbatsky a pick-me, or Barney Stinson a sexual predator, the responses I get are usually two sides of the same missing the point ass coin. One camp assumes I hate the show because they assume that to love something is to leave it at that. Any further analysis is picking it apart or doing too much. They scream that it's just a show and not that deep because they don't know that we are supposed to analyze the media we consume. The other camp takes the negative judgments I've made about a character to mean that they're not allowed to like that character and that the show did something wrong by creating that character or writing them to do whatever makes them bad or problematic because they think the media they consume, the characters they like, are supposed to be a reflection of their own morals and values. Virtue mirroring. That first camp comprises of people who love the show that tell me they feel upset, conflicted, or called out in some way by me pointing out something negative about a character's personality, actions, or morals. That camp usually feels like I'm ruining it for them, destroying their childhood, or breaking their heart in some way. The other camp are people who've never even seen the show, but upon hearing the moral judgments I've made about these fictional characters, they start bragging about their imagined real-life moral superiority because they think never having watched the show and never having liked this problematic show or characters means they are better than the people in the other camp who feel some kind of shame about liking the show.
No. Chet says, girl, I don't want perfectly moral characters. How boring. But that's what Full House was. That's what Steve Urkel was. That's what shows you watched with your kids were. It was about characters. I mean, that's what Fresh Prince was really about, was like digestible badness in characters that weren't about rape and assault, but about like everyday issues a family might face. I love that shit. I don't know if you guys watched that shit growing up, but I love that shit. You know what I mean? I love shows like that. I loved I Love Lucy. I loved shows like this growing up, right? So like, if this is your show, then, or if this is your life, like people, you know, not everything we watch has to be like the worst people we know, but then I want both. I want the spectrum for myself personally. You don't have to like it, of course, but I personally do like shows with people who are flawed in a way that doesn't mean they're a rapist. Because honestly, I'm getting burnt out on everybody being a rapist. First episode of Gossip Girl, Chuck Bass tries to rape Joe Goldblum's daughter, or Joe Goldberg's sister. Can we please have a show where the first episode isn't about rape? And then at the same time, I'm going to need a show that's a little bit more critical about what it means to be a person. Do you know what I mean? Like, can I have both? Can I have both, please?
What are characters now that it's been brought to their attention that something about them is bad or problematic or not aligned with their real life values in some way? While these camps might think they're not alike, they are actually two sides of the same coin.
Sorry, Chad says Full House was full of flaws. Yeah, but the flaws weren't somebody's a rapist. It was like, you know, it was like DJ stayed out too late and didn't call her parents. You know what I mean? That's what I meant.
Because both camps, one, have no idea what media analysis is, and two, are practicing what I am calling virtue mirroring. So now that you know.
Wait. Chad said by perfectly moral, I meant like an unflawed character, not a family values balance. Yeah, but like, who is that? Is there a show that has a person that's like unflawed? I've never seen that show. Can you give me an example so I can understand it? Because not even a Disney show has a person that's unflawed. Everybody's flawed. I don't think a character exists like that because like that wouldn't be a person. Right? Is that an example? Jesus? Wasn't she flawed though? There is actually a passage in which Jesus was flawed in the desert. Or maybe that's not a good example because Jesus was not flawed by scripture's status. But I would say, Chet says a Mary Sue character. I mean, isn't the flaw being a Mary Sue? Isn't the flaw in itself being a Mary Sue? I mean...
what media analysis is, to that second point. What is virtue mirroring? It took me longer than I expected to be able to put into words the phenomena I am trying to critique because I needed to distinguish it from ethical consumerism and moral media consumption because both of those things are incredibly necessary within reason. So what I've come up with, yes, your girl, quote me, I coined it, I Googled it, ain't nobody said it, me. So what I've come up with is virtue mirroring, which refers to the specific idea that you cannot enjoy media or characters that don't align with your views or is morally bad or problematic in some way because your media is meant to mirror your own virtues. I'm referring to that fear people have that you're going to point out to them how a character...
Ooh, this works with YouTubers as well. This works for YouTubers as well. I stopped sharing people that I liked that were problematic because I learned from everybody, even problematic people, but I don't like them the way I like people that are in line with my values. Like there are very few people I see in the world that align perfectly with my values because we're all individual complex creatures. But I'd like a lot of people that align mostly with my values or sometimes with my values, or sometimes I learn great things about myself by watching people that I'm like, ugh, I am not aligned with them. And I think the same thing works with YouTubers. Like if I say like, oh, I watched this thing and someone's like, ew, you watched that person? And I'm like, oh, do you mean that I watched them once or do you mean that I watched them at all? Or do you mean, what do you mean? I think the same thing happens with the YouTubers. Like you're judged on who you watch versus saying like, I'm a fan of this person's work. And I think that's different. Saying I watch somebody to me does not tell me if you're a fan of them. So maybe that's my autism, but I'll ask like, are you a fan of them or do you just watch them? Because my partner and I watch a lot of people we are not fans of. And I learned this about them. Actually, when I met them, they were like, oh yeah, I watched so-and-so. And I thought, and I didn't know if they were telling me they were a fan of so-and-so or they watched them. But yeah, I watch a lot of YouTubers that I'm not fans of. But it kind of goes back to the Vanguard conversation. I might watch the Vanguard on occasion, but I'm not like a fan of them. But I obviously still see some good in their work. You know?
Or show is morally bad or advancing something problematic and ruin them for them because they won't be allowed to like it anymore without it meaning something negative about themselves. Whereas ethical consumerism refers to the practice of making purchasing decisions based on ethical considerations, such as the social and environmental impact of products and services. Ethical consumerism is about choosing to buy goods and services from companies that align with one's values and boycotting those that don't. Examples of people practicing ethical consumerism are people who don't shop fast fashion or use AI because of the negative impact on the environment and workers. Or Black people boycotting Target for rolling back their DEI policies after making commitments to racial progress and supporting Black communities. Moral media consumption is simply an extension of ethical consumerism, where we try to choose our media based on what aligns with our own views and ethics, and we critically analyze media to determine what the messages and impacts are so we can better determine how to consume and engage with media as to mitigate social harm. It's about being responsible with our media, ensuring that we don't spread and promote harmful ways of thinking and believing.
Ooh, Chet says, wait, can you link the video so I can send her explanation to a friend who lost a baddie because he doesn't understand how his consumption is affecting his personality, which when he isn't doom scrolling. But also, he didn't lose the baddie because he was doom scrolling. He lost the baddie because he doesn't have a relationship with self. That baddie was never his. Enjoy.
Might require you not to consume certain media altogether, but it doesn't have to. It might just have to change how you need to engage it and analyze it and speak about it. There is a fundamental difference between virtue mirroring, ethical consumerism, and moral media consumption. Also, it's worth saying that virtue mirroring is also not to be confused with virtue signaling. Virtue signaling is about how you try and signal to others what your virtues are. It's an outward process. But virtue mirroring is internal. It's about what you think your media must communicate about you. Let me give you an example that should illustrate the difference between ethical consumerism and moral media consumption from virtue mirroring. J.K. Rowling, the creator of Harry Potter, hates trans people and devotes significant amounts of money, time, and energy to hurting trans people.
Boo! J.K. Rowling is so pathetic. Loved J.K. Rowling in the past. Great example. Loved her in the past. Would watch her little documentary about her life and her dad dressing her as a boy and calling her a boy's name. And I know some people like to theorize that J.K. Rowling is actually trans and that's why she's upset. And I would just say, like, she grew up really fucked up and I'm sad for her, but I'm sad that she became this person. What a bummer, dude. What a bummer. She could have had such a nuanced and beautiful relationship with gender, and instead she's like, boo. She just like made a whole, just a hateful, because she's traumatized. Going back to my theory, traumatized people with good intentions, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Go to therapy. Deconstruct your trauma. Trust me, it's gonna be better for everybody. But see how she moves off trauma and then she feels validated because all the other traumatized people are like, yeah, J.K. Rowling, we hate trans people. Why do you hate trans people? You know?
People, trans women in particular. Virtue mirroring makes a person believe they can no longer like Harry Potter or even read the books and watch the movies they already own because it would make them appear transphobic by proxy. Whereas practical ethical consumerism wouldn't mean that to support trans people and trans rights, you have to stop liking Harry Potter or indulging in what you already own. But it does mean that you have to stop financially supporting and purchasing Harry Potter products going forward because you would be financially contributing to J.K. Rowling's war on trans people as she actively funds trans hate groups that have been successful at stripping trans people.
I think you need to pick and choose how you're going to consume under capitalism, because no ethical consumption under capitalism. And you got to pick and choose. I'm boycotting Amazon currently, and I've definitely been inconvenienced by it. But if you can't boycott Amazon, boycott something else. I personally like AI, and I'd rather have a world where we had AI funding than animal consumption and Amazon consumption. But I understand that, like, we're picking and choosing. See, like, I feel like in a good deconstructed world, we'd build the future towards a technological reality in which it didn't come at the expense of people or the environment, but everything we do comes at the expense of the environment because we are the environment impacting one another. So pick and choose your battles because you can't be perfect. I'm not going to ever advocate or make a prescription to be perfect. Just pick and choose your battles. Maybe don't engage in all of the bad, but some of the bad, and know that you'll never be able to not be bad because all people are bad, but all people can do good by being less bad. But not, I don't ever want you to be a perfectionist. You can't be perfect. It would be bad to think you could be perfect. More bad, I would say. Very Frollo. Hellfire, hellfire. I've been listening to the soundtrack and I've been listening to that song over and over again. And he's, blaming Esmeralda, right? What does he say? God made temptation stronger than a man, or God made the sin. What does he say? Stronger than a man. Like God didn't make temptation stronger than your will. You have no will to rely on, And like, that's what the thing about people is, like, we're always blaming somebody else. We're always holding somebody else accountable. We're always pointing the finger. Philosophically speaking, it always starts with us. This is the problem, us. But then at the same time, I understand that in the micro, we want to be like, you're the bad person. It's both the macro and the micro, the macro and the micro.
of rights in the UK.
As a trans person, no one will ever make me hate Harry Potter. Harry Potter was literally one of the first book series I ever read. It gave me room to exist in a world outside of my own in the midst of such immense trauma that I was experiencing as a child. And it also taught me how to read. And I don't mean just like...
Oh, thank you, chat. He made the devil so much stronger than a man. Thank you. He made the devil so much stronger than a man. Ooh. Ooh. You know, Disney, regardless of its complicated, problematic past, really hits with those songs.
Knowing the words on the page, but like how to read in terms of like getting context and understanding the dialogue and things of that nature. And so it's always fuck J.K. Rowling, and I will never purchase anything as it relates to Harry Potter ever again, because fuck this lady, like she really is nutty. But you will never find me being like, oh my God, I hate Harry Potter.
Virtual mirroring is less about tangible external impact and more about one's personal views, feelings, and what we think our media says about us. Whereas ethical consumerism and moral media consumption are about avoiding tangible real world harm by not funding it or incentivizing its creation or engaging and promoting it uncritically, which makes it more significant. I say all that to say, what I am critiquing is virtue mirroring, not moral media consumption. Moral media consumption certainly has its place within reason, and I will explain why. It is undeniable that the normalization of problematic ideas, stereotypes, and behaviors in media is a real and serious issue. It is very true that people are influenced, indoctrinated, and covertly fed certain beliefs via the propaganda in media, and that is a very real issue. And thus, it is a legitimate position to take that we should be careful not to incentivize the creation of media that doesn't align with our views through our financial support, or at the very least, engage it critically so that we don't spread, promote, and normalize mess, which is why moral media consumption is necessary. And no one understands that better than today's sponsor, Ground News. I choose to use Ground News when doing my research for productions like these, because not only does their app and website let you compare how the media is framing any given story worldwide and get context on each source, in this particular climate where everybody is targeting you with click,
get that bag, girl,
and misinformation, and when it's hard to tell what's even real, what's fake news, and what's just straight up propaganda and maybe even AI, a tool like Ground News is invaluable, especially when I'm researching ethical consumerism. In recent news, OpenAI has won a $200 million contract by the US Department of Defense to develop frontier AI capabilities for national security and warfighting. We can see that over 130 articles have been published on this story, with coverage evenly distributed between the left, center, and right. Comparing coverage is interesting, however, with more left-leaning and center sources highlighting the contract positively as strengthening security, while the right states billion order for OpenAI, Pentagon deals with Musk's arch enemy, creating a dramatic narrative suggesting government favoritism towards Musk's competitors. You can see more stories like this on the Ground News daily briefing page, which summarizes and highlights the breaking news of today. Ground News really can't be beat because it makes it easy for me to make sure that I am not just spewing unsubstantiated mess or being biased and trifling, which is why it was a no-brainer to go with them for today's sponsor. Go to ground.news/Olay or scan the QR code on screen. Ground News is giving my viewers 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. This is their best deal of the year, and it will only be available for a limited time, so you better jump on it. Also, Ground News is subscriber funded, so you won't see any of those ads on their website that contribute to sensationalism and clickbait reporting. By subscribing, you're not only getting an amazing resource, but you are supporting their work directly and helping keep media reporting honest. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Ground News. Now back to it. A very important example of why moral media consumption matters is propaganda. Propaganda refers to media and entertainment designed to manufacture support for authority, police, prosecutors, prisons, and the prison industrial complex by using storytelling, sensationalized stories, if not altogether fabricated news stories, to create positive images of police, prosecutors, and prisons that downplay the horrific realities of these institutions and actors and systemic injustices, while vilifying the people who find themselves caught up in the criminal system and those who defend them. Now that you have the definition of propaganda, you probably already have a million shows coming to mind. Good. That means that you have arrived at proof of the first thing you need to know, which is that the United States of America loves propaganda. So much, in fact, that it dominates television programming. Not only is Law & Order the longest running primetime franchise in television history, its popularity is no small contributor to the reason crime shows are one of the most watched genres of television, and law enforcement makes up for at least 20 to 30% of all television programming since the 1970s. And while many shows can advance propaganda without intention, shows like Law & Order do not just happen to advance it. It is their purpose.
Since the original series launched in 1990, the Law & Order franchise has racked up 6 spin-off series for a whopping total of 62 seasons of television and 1,316 episodes so far. In January, the Special Victims Unit will return for a mind-boggling 25th season. Organized Crime will launch its 4th season, and the original series, after having been revived...
Pause. I won't lie to you. I've seen a lot of Law & Order. My bestie's mom always had it on growing up, and it was like the only way I could watch it. And so every time I'm at her house, even to this day, that's what we watch. We watch Law & Order. So I have seen a stupid amount of Law & Order, and I'm not gonna play. I love it. I love it.
2021 will be tallying its 23rd season. Law & Order is so ubiquitous that at any point during the day, you're likely to find a rerun while you're flipping through the channels. Well, I mean, if you had a cable subscription. The people who have those are generally the same ones who own a house they bought for a hand job and a bushel of boysenberries back in the 70s. My point is, Law & Order is an American institution. Right up there with football, unaffordable healthcare, and our penchant for invading Middle Eastern countries for oil. For many viewers, Law & Order is their primary contact point with the criminal legal system. And the show isn't exactly honest or unbiased when it comes to its representation. I don't think it should be controversial to say that Law & Order is a TV show whose express purpose is to honor and celebrate the police.
You know, there is a shared interest in putting bad guys away and having cops, shown in a decent light. I am kind of unabashedly pro law enforcement.
Moreover, not only is media and entertainment littered with propaganda, the police departments themselves create and finance it, as well as they often act as advisors and consultants to shows like Law & Order and even Narcos. For example, the NYPD spends more than $10 million annually on its propaganda and social media. Ask yourselves, why would NYPD need a dance team? Propaganda. Because even videos like this, where the police are dancing terribly on TV, appearing to make a fool of themselves, serve the purpose of presenting the police as harmless. It's very difficult to associate this kind of image of buffoonery with police brutality and a threat. The role propaganda has played and continues to play in the miseducation of the public as to how the American criminal system works, how the police function, who they police and why, as well as a host of other beliefs, cannot be understated. I could drown myself in the amount of lies the public has been force-fed about the criminal system. Propaganda is the reason people blame public defenders for plea deals and prison sentences instead of prosecutors and legislators and judges. It's the reason people see defense attorneys as the bad guys and prosecutors as the good guys. It's the reason people see our rights as just technicalities, stopping the police from saving the day. People are unwittingly eating up propaganda from the moment we are born. It's not just Law & Order, baby. It's from Paw Patrol all the way to Powerpuff Girls, Lucifer, Chip and Dale, and the goddamn Rescue Rangers. We cannot escape the propaganda. Yes, you heard me. You heard what shows I listed. What's the Powerpuff Girls? A scientist literally creates 3 little superpowered girls that he then makes work for the mayor by beating the living shit out of any.
That's why we didn't like it when Toph became a cop, because it didn't make sense. Toph, a cop. Toph likes to beat up people. She doesn't like to be a cop. Like, why'd you make her a cop? It don't make no sense. You know what made sense though? Her living in a swamp at the end, because she said fuck the system.
Anybody the mayor labels a criminal without a shred of due process. The Powerpuff Girls would see Mojo Jojo and beat this down to the white meat on sight for absolutely no reason. Saw him grocery shopping, him up. See him out in the streets, him up. One time these bitches broke into jail to Mojo Jojo up. Where is the justice in that? And all the criminals usually happen to be people of color, monkeys, white trash hillbillies, incels, or whores. Y'all better stay woke here.
Oh my God. I was not ready for that. Good point, girl. Good point.
Lucifer, Satan, the devil himself, wants to prove to himself and God that he's good. So he goes to Earth and starts working with the LAPD.
That's so much funnier. Wait, my dad calls me one day. He goes, Betty, did you see this show called Lucifer on Netflix? I said, oh yeah, I don't watch it though. It looks kind of lame. And he goes, Betty, the devil is not a handsome man who will make love to you. The devil would laugh and revel seeing you burn in hell. Why are they convincing people that the devil is a handsome man? I was like, to be fair, I believe he was the prettiest of all angels. And my dad's like, that's not the point. The point is they're normalizing Lucifer as somebody who wouldn't love to see you tortured. He would love to do horrible things to people in hell. Why are they making him a pretty man? And I said, Hollywood. Like, what are you gonna do? But like, there is something really funny about the way we love a villain. We love a villain who picks us not to hurt. That's why that's that stereotype of like the pirate and the vampire. Like, we know vampires are literally like serial killers, but when the vampire doesn't kill you, it's like, oh, my blood's so good, but my ass is better. And it's all, I love the Mormon spin of vampires too. Be like, Bella, this is the skin of a killer, Bella. And like the opposite is like the vampire who eats animal blood instead of humans. But what are we gonna do when we start to talk about veganism as a vampire? What are you gonna do then, Edward? You can't just be killing animals, Edward. What if you're a vegan vampire? Thank you.
There is literally a storyline where a defense attorney is going to go to hell and she only makes it into heaven by quitting her job, becoming a prosecutor, and dating a cop. Oh, and Lucifer also falls in love with a cop who's supposed to be the epitome of goodness in the show.
Oh, please.
In the live action Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Chip and Dale are trying to catch Peter Pan, who is enslaving former has-been cartoon characters and forcing them to make straight-to-DVD movies. But they are trying to get Peter Pan because the police need their help, because people's pesky civil rights are stopping the police from doing what they need to do. So they need Chip and Dale's help because they won't be stopped by the red tape of our rights. Yeah. That's the actual plot, bro. In Darkwing Duck, Reginald Bushroot is a plant scientist trying to use plants to make healthy shit because Big Pharma and them poison and everybody only concerned about money. And because he's trying to do
Darkwing Duck,
this good thing, the Big Pharma, I know
Let's
Big
get dangerous. Darkwing Duck. You don't understand how much I lived for this show growing up.
Food, FDA, whatever it is. Them wicked ass trying to stop Bushroot. So they keep.
All right, pause. Chat says, Synthetic Blood. Have you not seen True Blood? No, I read the books. Honestly, I watched a little bit of the show though, but I did read the books. Shout out to my vampire girlies, okay?
With him and destroying his experiment so that he cannot make what he needs to save the world.
I'm not playing. If my research is successful, someday we'll get our nutrition just like plants. We'll be able to snack on sunlight.
There's no money in nutrition. It's not quality people want, it's quantity. You see, bigger food means bigger profit, and bigger profits mean money, money, money.
Did I hear someone mention money?
So when Bushroot ends up becoming basically a plant creature with the power to control plants and saying, the show makes my Bushroot the villain for trying to stop these wicked they actually hire Darkwing Duck to stop him. Okay, the villain is the man trying to give us healthy food. Y'all get that, right? And no, this isn't propaganda per se, although it kind of is. Darkwing Duck is basically a glorified cop. But what it is for sure is some bullshit. And I just wanted to tell y'all about it. The propaganda be right there, but we be missing it. So yes, there are legitimate reasons not to want to engage media when we realize that it advances problematic ideas, and fair that our support incentivizes the creation of more of this kind of media, thus helping to spread these horrible ideas. You know, supply and demand. And let me just make sure I say, it is also okay not to want to support or watch media that's advancing bullshit you don't believe in just because it's annoying. I promise that I'm getting ready to.
I think and I want to go back to what Ole said at the beginning of the video. Listen, what I like in private is not for the reasons you think, but it could be for the reasons you think. So I will like a certain thing that's problematic in private, but I don't like it the way the problematic people like it. I noticed that I think because I'm working on deconstruction and I am a queer person, I think I tend to like things, but recognize what I'm engaging with. I think that's why when my partner and I engage in media or engage in something, we always talk about it, because we can be like, oh, I like this, but look how problematic it is. Or, oh, I like this, but man, this is really damaging. But also we try to identify why we like it. I think we try to really take apart and deconstruct, why do I like this thing? Because I do think I come from a background in which I was engaging with vampire literature for toxic reasons. I was engaging in toxic relationship romance stories for toxic reasons. And now I can't enjoy them the same. Now that I'm healed or on my healing journey, I can't enjoy the media the same, but I can enjoy different forms of the media that aren't maybe the originals, but maybe something along the same line, but from a different perspective. So I think I used to read really, forgive my French, but kind of rapey romance stories, because it was always a story. I remember this one in particular where it's a time period romance, and the girl is captured by the opposite army, and the guy she has to take care of is the heroic barbarian, whatever. And then he's got a fever, so she has to take care of him. But while he had this fever, he fucked her in delirium. And it's this whole, come for me right now. And then I'm just I remember reading that as a young person and being well, I know they're going to end up together in the end, so it must be okay. And now that I'm an older person, I was why did I think this was hot? Why did I like this? Why did I think this was romantic? And it's because I think I was trained by society and by media to think that, this is my thought. I think in that moment, I was thinking the thing that was hot was the fact that I knew she wanted it, but needed an excuse to get it, which is why rape victim blamers will say, see, you wanted to be raped. No, she didn't want to be raped, fuckface. She wanted to have sex with him, which is different. But the only way she could have sex with him is if he raped her. But in her head, because she wanted it, it wasn't rape, but by all context, it's rape. And I think that's really hard for people to understand, that the difference between sex and rape is the consent. And so I would prefer books in which the sex that is had, it doesn't have to be coerced or somebody has to have a fever. I want the sex to just be consensual and out there. But then if you are consenting and you're out there, well, now you're a devalued woman because you wanted to have sex with this barbarian versus a person who was just consensually engaging with a man she was interested in. And so you're fighting all of the stigma. And so the way around the stigma is to be like, well, he took me. But then they don't think about the reputation now that the man, it's a whole thing. Okay. Yeah. Chad says there's a concept of ravishment in stories. Well, that's what it is. It's ravishment porn, basically. So again, I think I understand the idea of wanting to engage with a circumstance through fiction that gives you the feeling you're looking for without it ever coming into real life. Without it ever becoming like a thing in real life. Okay. Yeah.
Cut Desperate Housewives off in the middle of season 2 as we speak because the conservative propaganda and racism is ridiculous. Oh my God. So I agree with moral media consumption, especially in the case of propaganda. I also think it's worth mentioning that propaganda explicitly serves the state in a way that ensures it would exist and be created regardless of our support for it, because the state has a vested interest in manufacturing our consent for their power over us. So it makes more sense to me to lean on media analysis so that we can at least get some utility out of this problematic media as opposed to altogether disengaging from this kind of media. Which is why what people like Skip Intro do on his YouTube channel, where he breaks down the propaganda in beloved media like Law and Order, is so important. The propaganda can feel obvious when we parse it out or have someone else to analyze it for us, but it's very easy to miss because in many ways, it's intended for us to miss it. They are trying to passively indoctrinate us with covert messaging and propaganda. And they know that not only do most of us think everything ain't that deep, most of us are also watching TV to relax and unwind, which is fair.
I've been playing N64 games. I've been playing Super Mario and I'm screaming at my Switch. I'm like, how do people play video games to relax? My partner's like, well, they're not playing those video games. And I was like, okay, but this is the video game I want to play. And he's like, well, then you're not going to relax. And I was like, well, but this is the one I want to play. And he was just like, but it's not one of the relaxing ones. And I was like, what's happening? I was like, I am not relaxed. Okay. I'm literally screaming at my Switch why don't even get me started.
Life is hard, which reminds me of something T1J said in a severely underrated video he made called Why Stop Making Political Content.
When you take a serious look
shout out to T1J
at the problems of society,
we used to collab back in the day. Shout out.
Can get really depressing, if not infuriating, especially if you've personally experienced the negative effects of systemic injustice. And sometimes anger is a justified and even appropriate response. Quite often, the things that are the most important are also the least fun. But it can't be good to be sad and angry all the time. I refuse to believe that. And frankly, I refuse to live like that. And that's one of the problems with this evolution of American politics, is that politics is kind of expected to be your life, even if you aren't a content creator. It's good that people are more politically engaged and aware of systemic issues that nobody seemed to talk about before. But I think we've overcorrected for that. Now, every aspect of your existence is expected to be filtered through the lens of politics. A popular brand worked with a trans person. Well, you gotta boycott that brand, obviously. Did your parents vote for Donald Trump? Well, I guess you should stop talking to them forever. I'm not trying to do a both sides are bad argument, by the way. I have progressive liberal politics and I've never been shy about that. My point is that this idea that you can't make any decisions about how to live your basic life without first checking in to see if it's politically allowed is not unique to any political alignment. And it's pretty exhausting.
Ethical consumerism is important. Moral media consumption is important, but we also have to live. It's not necessary that we need to hold it against ourselves or others for consuming and enjoying media that may be in some ways problematic or not altogether representative of our virtues. Virtue mirroring is unnecessary, and I
just want to talk to that really fast because of what I mentioned earlier with my parents and stuff. I want to say the thing you learn in life is on the macro, we're all biological creatures existing in a universe. We're incredibly flawed. And we only have so much access to free will, especially if we're not deconstructing. I think free will is a relationship with deconstruction. I don't think it's as much about making choices because I don't think we're making choices the way we think we're making choices. If given new information, you would make a different choice, and the choice you are making with limited information is only so attached to what we think of as free will. Because we think of free will as something that comes from an actual place of making a choice. And it's we're doing it and we're smart, we think we're so smart, we run the risk of forgetting that we would make a different decision if we knew different things. And that's why I always caution you from thinking you could be perfect. And especially that Madeline Pendleton clip of them saying, like, if you disagree with CJ, you're probably wrong. CJ's 19. That's a 19-year-old child that you were looking at and being like, if you don't agree with a 19-year-old child, you're probably wrong. And at the same time, you're saying that 19-year-old people can't consent to relationships with people 35 because they might be taken advantage of. Like, make a decision. Like, 19-year-olds can obviously make really adult decisions and they can be right on a lot, but they don't have the lived experience of time on this planet enough to have the wisdom or discernment to make better decisions, and they're gonna be wrong. And more than that, what a fucking pressure to put on a person. Why would you put that amount of pressure on a fucking 19-year-old? Why would you tell a 19-year-old you're so fucking perfect and everything you say is right? And if you ever say anything wrong, you're fucked up. Like, because that's what you're doing, right? Like, hello? What are you doing? Why are you putting that much pressure on a young person before they've even really figured themselves out? You know, it's just like, what a ridiculous thing for a person to put on somebody. So all of this to say, like, you can love humanity and still want to see it grow. This goes back to the Clara conversation we had yesterday. You can love your body and still want to change it. You can love humanity and want to change it. You can love your parents and want them to change. You can love yourself and want to change. Love, philosophically speaking, is about radical acceptance. It's not about fighting what's reality. It's about accepting what is. And then talking about wanting to see things change.
Moral media consumption requires that we totally disengage. I think it provides us the option to analyze and discuss media in a way that minimizes the harm. That's why I love doing media analysis of my favorite shows on Illuminati Pop, where I can appreciate them for the ways that they are great and critically analyze the bad so that we make sure we are not just internalizing nonsense. I loved the Powerpuff Girls since I was a kid, and I still love them bitches. I just now know that those bitches were state-sanctioned terrorists, okay? Glorified super police, released onto the people of Townsville to brutalize people just like the police do and destroy the town and endanger others in the process, just like police do. And that's dope to be able to see how our real life and trend supportive police shows up even in our cartoons and places we least expect it, and to be able to use those depictions to teach people about these real issues.
I've had this conversation a lot in the past, specifically around Euphoria. Because I talked a lot about the fact that it made me uncomfortable that Drake, with all of his allegations, was an executive producer of the show. I was not saying like, hey, you know, you shouldn't watch Euphoria because Drake, like when I watch a show, I like to like look at all the things that make up the show, like how the show is created, who's creating the show, things of that nature. I'm still gonna watch a lot of the shows that are being produced by some bullshit. Like one of my favorite movies is a sci-fi film that was fucking created by Harvey Weinstein. If it come on, I'm gonna watch it. It's a great movie, but you just have to also like acknowledge that these are the conditions under which like the film is created or that the show is created, and that's okay to name.
Pause. Great point. Chess says, I think as a kid, hormones also cloud us and make us think certain things are hotter than it was. Wait, that is so true. I think that is so true. Yeah, I think like as a young person, I definitely thought things were sexy that now I'm like, and that's okay. That's kind of my criticism of young people when I'm like, you think it's hot now, but you probably won't think it's as hot when you get older. In the same way that you think this dysfunctional relationship is like real love now, but when you get older, like you're not supposed to actually think dysfunctional relationships are love. You know, you're supposed to use wisdom. You're supposed to have, you know what I mean? A relationship with discernment. But I think when you're young, that's why we give young people a chance to make mistakes, because you're going through a biological experience. Everything is so crazy. And it's why we look down at adults who don't grow out of certain stages. Now, the problem is which bubble is judging. So that's my issue is like, I don't like the way conservatives are like grown people don't have tattoos or grown people aren't goth. Like that's not my bubble. I'm talking about dysfunction, girlies. I'm talking about, you know, problematic behavior. I'm not talking about whether or not you got a nose piercing, but I think that's the problem is like which bubble is talking about which. So it sounds like, I don't want someone to hear me and be like, oh, Brittany, that sounds like my conservative parents. Okay, fuck your conservative parents. Actually, don't, because incest is not wincest. Okay, okay. But I think what's really important, that's a little bit of a joke. What's really important is that you're able to say, okay, as I've gotten older and as I've learned to discern, I find this action problematic. And as a wise person in the community, as an elder in the community, I would like people to get to this certain part of the journey by a certain age or by a certain era of their life or whatever else. And we encourage it by doing preventative work. And then if people haven't gone there, that's okay. We help people because it's never too late. But I think it is dangerous if you have a conservative say, well, don't you want to dignify your body? So you shouldn't sleep around. Versus when a deconstructed like leftist says it, or a progressive or a queer person says, don't you want to have a dignified relationship with sex? Okay, let's find dignified people to have sex with. Let's find ways to have healthy sex. Because some of the ways people have sex are not healthy. There are healthier ways to engage in intimacy. And I say that as somebody who had like a very problematic engagement with sex throughout her life. Like, I think it makes sense though. Like, I was really trying things out, you know, and some of those things I would do again, just like from a healthy perspective. It wasn't the kind of sex I was having. It was my relationship with sex when I was having it that was unhealthy. Does that make sense? Not always, not all the time, but sometimes, you know?
Virtual mirroring can make it difficult to see the value in problematic characters, plots, and storylines, whether they reflect the real world we're living in or not, because we think our media is supposed to reflect us, say something about us, and only depict the world we want to live in, not the one that we do. I believe that there not only can be room for both depictions of the world we want to live in and the world we do live in, I think there must be. We've become so politically conscious that we created this kind of hostile social environment, especially on the internet, where it feels like everything is a litmus test and you're expected to denounce, abandon, and shit on any and everything that could be called problematic, to the point that people break into hives at the first sight of media analysis because they're scared to death that it means they're going to have to denounce, cancel, or get rid of something they love, which is why so many
That's true. Like, people are like, can I not like anything anymore? You can like it, dude, but how you like it matters. That's why, going back to what I said earlier, it's not that you like something, it's how you like it. Do you like it? For what reason do you like it? Genuinely, even being married, sometimes if my partner's like, oh, do you know this YouTuber? I'm like, why do you know this YouTuber? Or I'll say, oh, this YouTuber. My partner's like, why do you know that YouTuber? And I'm like, wait, why do you know that YouTuber? Do you like that YouTuber? Because we're almost worried, like, do you like them or do you just know who they are? Do you know what I mean? Like, why are you watching that? And like, so we'll talk about it because, you know, there's like that worry, like, do you like them for the wrong reason? You know, it's like, I'm trying to give an example of like, oh, somebody's like, oh yeah, I watched Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, do you mean that you watch them because you agree with Charlie Kirk? Or do you mean just you watch Charlie Kirk because you try to stay in touch with like conservative media? And they're like, oh no, I like Charlie. I think he says a lot of good things. I'd be like, but if they were like, oh, I hate Charlie Kirk, I just have to stay in touch with his content because like, you know, he's in the news. I'm like, oh yeah. But they could, you know what I'm saying?
Met Your Mother fans cling to this fan theory that maybe Barney wasn't that bad and Ted just tells the stories like that to make him look bad. Because that theory is what people come up with when they cannot reconcile the fact that the Predator is also their favorite character on the show. Barney was an iconic, hilarious, charismatic, entertaining, well-dressed, surprisingly generally good friend and misogynist predator. We do not need a theory to absolve Barney. We are allowed to call a spade, know what he is, and still with the character and the show. Virtual mirroring is unnecessary. We do not have to abandon How I Met Your Mother or Barney Stinson because they don't necessarily align with our views. But we do need to recognize what he is and why certain things either do not or should not align with our views. Moreover, media and entertainment serve as historical records, proof of what was going on in the world at the time, how people thought and behaved. We need media to reflect the world that we are living in all its problematic glory because we need to know our history so we know either how not to repeat it or how to tackle it. The Sex and the City has a bunch of different moments where they are transphobic, they are racist. You know.
Love Sex and the City. I used to have the box set, the big ass box set, and I used to watch it religiously. And we just actually rewatched it with my whole community. And it is so problematic. It is so funny. It is so good. It is so good. But it is just, I have a whole video about this, like the romanticization of toxic relationships. Sex and the City is 100% why girls today are still in toxic relationships because they think big is the prize. Both of them are toxic though. I want to make that abundantly clear. Both Carrie and Big are so toxic. They are both unhealed and should not be in relationships. And same with Miranda. I used to think Miranda was so cool. And I rewatch it. I'm like, Miranda's not that great. She has all great moments. All of them have great moments, but all of them are incredibly flawed, including Samantha, who I love the best. But like, they're all incredibly flawed people.
And let me tell you why I love that it's like that, because these bitches have tried their best. If you didn't know better because of how white rich ladies are, you would have no idea. You don't know who the president is when Sex and the City's happening. You don't know what the political stuff is happening or whatever, anything, because they don't never talk about it. But when that shit happens, you know what the times are. You immediately know what the larger infrastructure is, and it reminds you of who these bitches are. I never in my life become I love Sex and the City, but you will never see me like acting like, oh my God, Samantha, that's my favorite. I want to hang with Samantha. Samantha, the minute a black woman come around, the microaggressions come out, and you need that reminder of who they.
That episode is when Samantha dates a black guy for the first time, and then she hangs out with like black communities, and then she does this thing and Charlotte goes, oh my God, you can't talk like that. And she goes, talk like what? And she goes, you can't talk black. And then Samantha goes, what did she say? She goes, I'm not talking black. I'm talking, what did she say? Like, I'm talking cool or something. I don't remember, but I was just like, what is this episode? Like, the whole episode is so bad. It's so good. But I was just like, what is, and I love how Samantha dating a black guy is a whole fucking plot point. Because they don't date people of color throughout the show. It's all white people. So they had to make a whole episode called like the black episode because it's not, it's so bad.
All what the times are is that you can see these white bitches that you think you love and you think they relate to you and X, Y, Z or whatever, but don't ever get twisted. And that's why I appreciate that element of those things.
I actually really love.
And yes, I know Miranda had a stint where she dated a black doctor. And what did she do to that black doctor? She cheated on him with Steve. Okay? But we don't just, okay.
Olay, that you brought up Sex and the City. I recently rewatched that. I was one of those kids who snuck off when my mom was asleep as a kid and watched Sex and the City because she forbade us from watching that as a kid. And I was like, girl, you said no, so now I'm definitely gonna do it.
So grassy and so hard.
Yep.
So like I snuck off to watch it late at night as a kid. So I've seen all the seasons, but my partner has not. My partner is a trans masked person, and they had never seen Sex and the City. So I was like, oh, babe, like let's get into this. Some of like the transphobic scenes came up, and they were like, we both laughed at it. Both of us being trans, we both laughed at it because they were like, that is so 2000s. Like it's so early 2000s that like I actually.
Now I want to say this out loud for the people in my audience who don't exist, who might be conservative or like a little liberal. I doubt you exist, but they are not having the same conversation that PragerU would have, where they'd be like, how can we judge Christopher Columbus? It was just the times. Okay? Because conservatives will hear this conversation and say, see, it was just the time. It was just how people were. No. You're saying it as a way to justify the action, and they're saying it as a way to say, like, man, we were really fucked up. Like, it was really bad. That was really shitty. We should have done that. We're fucking awful. Like, conservatives do this as a way to be like, we can't judge Christopher Columbus because it was just like that time. I'm choking on my own joke. It's just the time, you know? So, okay, I just want to make sure that if, you know, you're randomly coming on my stream and you see this clip, you're not like, see, how could we judge slave owners? That was just the time. People owned people. Am I right? No. You're not right.
Would be disappointed if I didn't see that in this point, because everything that was being produced in that moment was just so ridiculously racist, transphobic, homophobic, like even down to Carrie having her, you know, lapdog gay best friend who she used and abused throughout the entirety of their relationship.
Stanford, Stanny.
Look at media not aging well as a good thing. Proof of progress that we can now see the error in our ways and that we have a society where we can better hear the dissenters. Because please know that everything that makes a piece of media problematic by today's standards was problematic then. The majority.
My favorite scene in Will and Grace, my favorite problematic scene, which now today is so funny to me, is when there's a bunch of strippers and there's like a girl stripper. And so Jack gets a lap dance from the girl stripper and gets a hard on. And he starts to question his whole sexual orientation. He's like, oh my God, I got a lap dance from a woman and it turned me on. Like, am I not gay? What's happening? And the woman's like, well, I'm still kind of a boy. And Jack's like, wait, what? And she goes, I'm having surgery next week and then I'll really be a girl. And Jack goes, oh, thank God. No wonder I got turned on because you're a boy. Get it? It's like a male to female. And so the joke is like she's a girl on the top but a boy on the bottom. And so Jack's okay with getting turned, but like the joke is it doesn't make sense because like trans people are always trans, or like trans people are always like getting a physical transition didn't all of a sudden make you. But then some people use that language because it's easier to communicate. But I think you're trans before transition. I don't think you have to transition to be trans. So it's kind of like a weird joke, you know?
He just either could not see that or couldn't hear the minority telling them about it. Moral media consumption dictates that we critically analyze the media consumed so that we can mitigate the harm by parsing out the lessons, identifying problematic elements and using them to critique or illustrate problematic societal attitudes and phenomena. Like, for example, rape culture, which brings me back to How I Met Your Mother, Barney Stinson, and the utility of problematic media that didn't age well, specifically because we get to see and understand why those things didn't age well. For as many people that love How I Met Your Mother, there are just as many people screaming about how it didn't age well.
And listen, thank goodness we had the rape culture conversation on the internet forever ago, because it set up us having this conversation now. Because as somebody who grew up with How I Met Your Mother and was obsessed with it, I need you to know that I didn't start moving people out of my life. Like the people in my life at the time who thought of Barney as a good person and mimicked him eventually got kicked out of my life, because I was like, didn't you grow out of thinking Barney was a good person? Like I remember meeting up with somebody who was in that friend group that really obsessed over How I Met Your Mother. And he was like the douchey, charismatic guy that basically like violated people, but like people thought he was so charismatic, they quote, let him, or they thought it was like an honor to. It was a whole thing. Later in my life, he asked me for a favor and I said, sure. And he came into my life again after having not talked to him for a while. And I realized like, oh my God, you didn't grow out of this. You didn't grow out of this stage. Like you're in your basically 40s and you didn't grow out of it. And that was the last time I ever saw him. And I was like, oh. And I was like pretty fucked up still at the time, but I was like in my progressive era, my liberal progressive era. And I was like, I didn't realize like he hadn't grown out of it. And he was a teacher and he used to brag like, you know, my students think I'm pretty handsome. And I was like, aren't your students minors? And he goes, yeah, but I can tell they're like really into me. And I was like, and then he was the same one who said like, this is all things I learned in a weekend where I was like, I'm not talking to you anymore, Brady. He said, he goes, well, the age of consent in Europe is like different because he worked in Europe. And I was like, and then he goes, oh, I've had sex with like a lot of people. And I was like, have you been tested? You should get tested. And he's like, I know when my dick has a cold. And I was like, you should get tested. You owe those people testing. You should get tested. And he goes, it's fine. Like, if I have something, I don't think I do, but like, I'm good. And I was like, anyways, never talked to him after that. But it's like one of those things where I knew him so many years in the previous to that I thought he would have changed because I changed. And I was like, you haven't changed? This is what I mean to say when I say like, there are people that do not change. Right? There are people who do not change. And so when people say like, but Brittany, how do people not change? You're one of those people that are changing, but a lot of people don't. Yeah. So he was kind of shocked when he saw me again. He's like, why do you have such an attitude with me? And I was like, and I didn't realize that he thought I would be the same, which is again, why I always tell you, if I made it 6 months ago, ask me for an update because I'm going to change. If you think I'm going to be the same girl I was 6 months ago, I'm not doing my job.
And that's owed in large part to How I Met Your Mother's rampant sexism and celebration of rape culture. Although there's also the occasional transphobia, racism, fatphobia, all the things.
By the way, autistic people do not take me too literally. 6 months might not be long enough for a transformation, but that's mostly a joke. But like also I should be updating some of my opinions every so often, if not on a daily, like, you know what I'm saying? But like, don't take it too literally.
Credit for much of How I Met Your Mother's reputation in this regard is owed primarily, but not exclusively, certainly not exclusively, to the most iconic and recognizable character from the show, Barney Stinson, who spends the majority of the show's run spewing misogynistic mantras about women and preying on drunk, vulnerable women who he manipulates into sex through nefarious means. Yet, I received many comments from people refusing to see Barney as the predator he very explicitly was because they practice virtue mirroring and thus could not reconcile their favorite character being a predator, so they chose instead to convince themselves he's not. But one comment in particular stood out to me. A man left me a comment saying he liked my How I Met Your Mother videos, but he has to stop watching them because I keep calling Barney Stinson a predator when he is just engaging in very normal bar culture.
Well, excuse the fuck out of me.
And as I explained in my Barney video, that is precisely the problem. The fact that you are a regular witness to rape culture because it's so commonplace does not make it any less rape or predatory. It just proves how pervasive the problem is and how far we are from solving it. When men watch a character who is explicitly preying on drunk women, lying, manipulating, and deceiving them into sex, regularly filming and photographing women without their consent, and has even admitted to selling a woman and go, yep, this is fine. So,
and by the way, Barney Stinson is kind of like capitalism. Hear me out. Any means necessary to close the deal. Any means necessary to close the deal. Capitalism is kind of like rape culture. They don't care if it comes at the expense of your dignity, your sanity, or your life savings. They're going to close that deal.
Is rape culture. Rape culture refers to the idea that rape and sexual abuse are commonplace and normalized in our communities, as well as media and entertainment, as a result of the community's attitudes and misunderstandings about gender, sexuality, gender roles, and sex. In other words, intentionally picking the drunkest women to try to have sex with because you know that drunk women are not in their full right state of mind, so they're more likely to sleep with you, is literally a predator and rape culture on display. You are literally preying on vulnerable women, which Barney says throughout the show are his favorite women, which is also a core element of all of Barney.
He literally picks mentally ill women, women with daddy issues, women that are vulnerable, women who just want to be heard and seen by a man who doesn't leave them, and then he leaves them.
Ted's wingman activity is trying to find the most vulnerable women to lie to and manipulate into sex, which is rape by deception. Rape law is a complex thing that has been slow to evolve to reflect modern understandings of rape, because most rape law was not designed to protect victims. For example, for most of American history, men legally could rape their wives because the misogynistic understanding for the law was that women belong to their husbands, owe them sex, and thus cannot technically refuse it. In Maryland, rape used to mean sex by physical force or threat of physical force.
Yeah.
And what that used to mean was that victims who were threatened or
And I know, pause, I'm working on a Diddy video. I'm exhausted. The verdict coming out. I'm tired. But the reason he didn't get sex trafficking charges was basically because they couldn't prove he truly coerced the women into the sex, which is so fucking obviously. Brittany, don't. I'm going to rant. No, don't rant. If you violently abuse your girlfriend, Cassie, is that not coercion and under threat of violence to then engage in freak-offs? Oh. Anyways, okay, so you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so okay.
forced any other way but physically would have their claims dismissed. And that was an upgrade from older definitions of rape that defined rape as sex by force without consent and the utmost resistance, which basically meant that victims had to physically fight off their attackers for it to be considered rape, which of course would expose them to more danger and a greater likelihood of being killed. Many jurisdictions, like New Jersey, have begun changing their rape laws to protect victims by recognizing the range of tactics used to force people into sex. New Jersey now has affirmative consent, which means that in order for you to have consent to have sex, it's not sufficient that a person didn't say no or stop. They need to have affirmatively said yes and given consent. New York has expanded its definition of rape to include forcible compulsion, and many other states and countries have begun recognizing rape by deception, which is where someone gains sexual access through fraud or misrepresentation. Specific examples are lying, impersonating other people, and medical fraud. Now, let's talk about Barney's playbook, shall we?
This, my friends, is the playbook. The playbook contains every scam, con, gambit, flim-flam, stratagem, and bamboozle I've ever used or ever hope to use to pick up chicks and give them the biz. From basic moves like the don't drink that. Ooh, don't drink that. I saw some guy slip something in there.
What? Who?
That.
Thank you.
Some more advanced maneuvers, like the Mrs. Stinsfire.
We have been assigned a new house mom. I'd like you to meet Mrs. Stinsfire.
Girls! I got left at the altar.
Really? A genie comes out of it?
Only if you rub it hard enough.
Can I help you?
I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but my wife is having an affair with your husband. I even found a list of every dirty way they've enjoyed each other's bodies. I wish there was some way we could get back at them.
There is. We can kill them.
Throughout most of the series, Barney is on the tireless pursuit of manipulating women into sex through nefarious means. Hundreds of women at that. It's known that Barney records and takes photos of all the women he sleeps with without their consent and gets scrapbooks made of them. He literally sold a woman. The show makes a joke of Barney being repeatedly sued for his predatory shit and beating the suits. In the episode Rebound Bros, Barney wants Robin's help training Randy to be a wingman, and when she declines, he threatens to leak a sex tape of them. In How I Met Your Mother, rape culture is constantly on display to a laugh track. And although the show does acknowledge Barney as a predator, the show makes little to no effort to drive home how bad this behavior is. It's played for laughs. In fact, the man who created the show wrote the women characters, Lily and Robin, to help justify the predatory behavior of Barney and also Ted.
Because the women were, they were the epitome of the pick-me era, which I consumed and ate up. I wanted to be a cool girl that could like hang out with boys and do boy things. And then I realized like, oh, I am just a boy. I thought I was trying to be a girl that's a boy, but I'm actually just a boy that's a girl. It's been complicated, deconstructing it all. Because I genuinely, it's been a journey, girls. Let me tell you.
By repeating misogynistic tropes about how women are stupid and deserving of what they get if they fall for these manipulation tactics.
Look, if these girls are dumb enough to fall for this crap, they have it coming.
Which is problematic, yes. But it's also precisely how rape culture functions in real life. So it provides us ample examples to illustrate exactly how rape culture functions in real life and how people like Barney Stinson get away with their behavior because they are affirmed by the people around them who believe in these misogynistic and predatory understandings of women, sex, and consent. And as someone who has found myself continuously trying to find find new ways to make people understand rape culture, like I did in my video, How Men Become Aziz Ansari, that you should watch after this if you haven't seen it. The problematic nature of How I Met Your Mother is useful to me. It allows me to easily show people what rape culture is, which many people struggle to understand in the abstract when you try to explain it to them. Nevertheless, the creators and writers of How I Met Your Mother are not off the hook simply because I find utility in problematic portrayals of Barney and rape culture throughout How I Met Your Mother. Shows try to create they create a bad character, but they also, in some ways, they turn that badness into something to like admire and celebrate. Like they make it cool, they make it this. And like, while it can be entertaining, without healthy media analysis, what happens is people just think it's okay.
Right.
People are, Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother is a predator. He's a rapist. Like he literally is. And you have all these like men going on buying the playbook.
Chad says I'm about to subscribe to her, but okay, listen. Olay has a lot of channels. You gotta also, in my opinion, subscribe to Olay and Friends. That's my favorite channel. That's if you want the like real life current topic trending, like sit down feel, that's my favorite. But I also like these videos, but Olay and Friends is like, that's like my jam right there.
Confidently, shamelessly telling me that they did tactics that Barney did is obviously rape, like rape by deception, like, and sexual coercion, because the show is playing it for laughs. You know what I mean? Like it's playing it for laughs. And so even though I appreciate the utility in this just representation of rape culture, because that is how it happens in real life. These things are played for laughs. Everybody around and endorses it, encourages XYZ.
That's true.
But at the same time, without healthy media analysis to point that out, especially in a culture that like sees media analysis as hating, you know what I mean? I assume you don't like it or something, like it becomes destructive.
Yeah.
Because I love How I Met Your Mother. I wouldn't want it to change. I love it. I enjoyed it. I think like it can be helpful, but it's a problem if the entire zeitgeist for all these people that love How I Met Your Mother is I love it. Therefore, I cannot analyze. I cannot critically analyze it. When critical analysis is necessary to make it okay, because without the utility in this problematic representation, what is it? It's just an affirmation. I don't think it's a normalization, because I think this is already it reflects the culture. I think this is already the case, but I think it affirms it. If without this media analysis, like structure to go along with it, it says, hey, look at what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's showing you rape culture. You can enjoy it. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. You can't.
Exactly. Now, wait, Chad says it reminds me of when Trisha came out as a man. Like maybe she wasn't lying. Maybe completely. Maybe she's like you. Listen, I don't know what's up with Trisha Paytas, but I will say like we might both be men, but we are different kind of men. Let me just say that. If Trisha is a man, we are not the same kind of man, because being a man isn't a monolithic experience. Let me tell you, we're not having the same experience, but gender is a thing, and Trisha is trans. Like Trisha is a they, them, she, her, him. Like Trisha is having that experience. So, I mean, Trisha's already come out. So there's no reason to say that they aren't, or he isn't, or she's not. Like Trisha is out.
Love it, you can't love the characters, you can't get it, but you should engage with a thoughtful analysis. And so many people have an aversion to thoughtful analysis. While I don't necessarily think it's incumbent on creators to write characters who are model citizens, as well as I think it's necessary that we have characters, plots, and storylines that mirror the problematic realities of our time, because our media should reflect our lived experience, because our media becomes history, evidence of the times, and we know that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. So it's a mistake to do away with problematic portrayals in media. Creators.
I love this line that I heard years ago, that history doesn't repeat itself, people repeat history, because it puts the responsibility on us instead of this abstract history. Because if we say history repeats itself, we take ourselves out of the equation and we think history happens to us, but we create history. And that's why I say, do you know you're a blip of history? You're living history. What you do is what people will look back on and say like, oh yeah, that's history. So when we look back at people and go, I can't believe they were that problematic, I can't believe they did this, you're the thing. You're it. We're it, right?
Still do bear a responsibility to mitigate harm and to make clear to identify bad behavior as bad, especially where abuse, SA, and predatory practices are concerned. And it seems to me that while there is very much so utility in using How I Met Your Mother as a teaching tool, it could have and likely caused just as much harm in their perpetuation of rape culture and in their celebration of Barney Stinson.
100% from my own anecdotal lived experience. Yeah, the fact that I even have one male friend that wanted to be Barney Stinson and ended up being Barney Stinson tells me that like, uh-oh. But to be fair, wouldn't he have been? I think he always was. I think he just used Barney as a justification because people loved Barney. I actually think that's the problem, is like, I think he probably always was. I mean, he definitely suffered from main character syndrome. That's for sure.
Who many people have gone on to emulate. For example, the How I Met Your Mother writers repeat.
And I will say the greatest thing I ever did was not have sex with him, because he offered. Because we used to flirt a lot, and I was a virgin, and I was like 22, and I was deciding who to pick to have sex with for the first time, like men, women. And I was experimenting. I'd been like with girls, with boys, but I was like deciding what man should be the first man I had sex with. And he's like, do you want to have sex with me? And you know what's even crazier is like people in my life were like, oh, you should have sex with him. And then the moment he offered it to me, I said like, no, I'd like you just to like take me home. I don't want to have sex with you. Because we were friends. We hung out all the time. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to have sex with you. And in that moment, I don't even I remember in my head why I justified saying no. But I actually think like deep within my subconscious, I was like, this is not the person. And to this day, I have zero regrets about the first man that I decided to have sex with. Like the first man that I had sex with was like, to this day, like the best choice. He was nice. He was courteous. He was considerate. Like there was a little bit of drama, but like when is there not? But like he was like a good first pick, and I'm really glad that I picked him. And even the first time I was with a girl, like no regrets. Like, you know, maybe not the greatest person, but like good sex, great situation, consensual, tested. Everybody was in the loop. Like, but that's the thing is like there was something in me that was like not him, girl, and I couldn't tell you in that moment how like I can't explain to that Brittany how grateful I am that she never had sex with that man. And by the way, I later learned that because he told me that made me go, I'm not having sex with you, is I was already a YouTuber. And he said, but you can't talk about it. And I was like, I can't talk about my life. And he's like, no. And I was like, so you want me to have sex with you, but I can't talk about it? He's like, and don't tell anybody in the friend group. And I was like, why not? And he was like, I don't want anybody to know about my life. Well, the reason he said that is I learned later is because he was having sex with multiple people in the friend group, and they didn't all know, and he was not getting tested. And it was like a whole thing, which I didn't even know till later. I didn't realize the testing thing till way later. What I realized in that moment was he was having sex with other people in the group, and he didn't want us to find out. And so when it all blew up and the friend group ended, it was because all that shit came to this. It was a whole thing. Girls, my early 20s was crazy, but I was a virgin. It was a group of libertarians and like former conservatives and Christian conservatives. It was a whole thing. Like nobody was even a progressive leftist there wasn't even the thing, you know? And it's just crazy. Yeah, I don't talk to any of those people except one person in that group. And the one person I talk to in that group is Inner Circle, and I love her. And we're still besties all these years later. But like, we were like, and by the way, you know why I love that girl is the first time I ever met her was in one of the group settings. And I was like, I'm really attracted to you. Are you single? And she goes, I'm straight, but I am single. And I was like, well, I guess we'll just have to be friends then. Boom. Over a decade later, still besties. Let's go.
Repeatedly presented the naked man, a tactic where a man would find an excuse to get into a woman's apartment so that when she'd leave the room, he would get naked in hopes that when she'd return, she would feel pressure to sleep with him as a joke, despite the fact that it was sexual harassment at minimum. The naked man is sexual coercion. You are attempting to coerce someone to have sex with you by getting into their home under ulterior motives, then getting naked without invitation in hopes that they have sex with you because they otherwise have not indicated a desire to do so. And while one could maybe argue that it was intended as a joke, intent matters less than impact. And I have received comments from men feeling comfortable enough to tell me that they tried the naked man and it worked. They felt comfortable trying it and telling me about it because the show did not present it as a crime or the problematic behavior that it was. And there are a million examples of predatory behavior How I Met Your Mother fed to people all over the world. Which is why, while I think it is perfectly fine for shows to introduce problematic characters, behaviors, and storylines that they intend we love, there is still a responsibility to make clear when predatory, harmful, prejudice, or criminal behavior is concerned. And I'm sure.
Mentioning Chuck Bass earlier, which I did, I do appreciate in the show that Chuck Bass was the bad guy. I also do not appreciate that they didn't really make his rape tendencies, in my opinion, enough of a main character, but maybe I should go back and rewatch. But I don't remember them being enough of a main character.
Or that there are people.
I mean, he certainly didn't go to therapy or be held accountable. But then again, that show got crazy.
Groaning and squirming because they don't think that there was a way for shit to be spicy, entertaining, or realistic without being cookie cutter and still drive home a message about wrong and right. But you would be wrong. Responsible representation is not the outlandish burden that we think it is. And I think one of the best examples of a show that got this right time after time after time was Degrassi: The Next Generation.
What? Yeah! Look how cute. Okay, this show, this season, this one, I would like sneak onto the television, and my dad had a code in the TV for all the adult channels, and Degrassi came on one of those channels, and I would like guess my dad's code in order to watch Degrassi. Don't even get me fucking started. I think for a lot of us, this was our first introduction to Drake. Okay. My first introduction to like sex and high school and degeneracy and dysfunction in that same way. Like, what was her name? Paige? Like, I don't even remember everybody's names, but like just going to watch this show and look at them, they're children. Look how young these babinos are. They're babies. Oh my God.
Bet you didn't expect to hear Degrassi mentioned. When I was a kid, Degrassi played on the end and the commercials would just say, Degrassi, it goes there. Because they did. They went there. Degrassi wasn't scared to explore.
Degrassi was like grunge Glee. Like Glee was like Degrassi light. Because you know how Glee hits on like really hard topics, but it's like, we want to kill ourselves because we're gay. Degrassi was just like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm gay. You know, like it was... It was like Glee was like the like, don't kill yourself because you're gay. You know what anyways.
Domestic violence, school shootings, bullying, suicide, rape, homosexuality, homophobia, anorexia, cutting, teenage pregnancy, abortion, mental illness, and everything under the sun. Degrassi knew how to give you a core protagonist that you love, had them do and say horrible shit, but realistic things, and then make that character pay and learn a lesson before letting you love them again without ever absolving them for the shit they did. A perfect example of that is Spinner Mason, one of the most popular main characters from Degrassi. We love Spinner. Most people are not going to spew vitriol at the mere mention of Spinner's name. Yet, during the show, it's Spinner who bullies Marco for being gay, bullies Rick and gets Jimmy shot, as well as he cheats on Darcy, but you know, Darcy. But neither the show nor the audience absolved him of any of that. It was a core part of the show watching Spinner's friends cut him off for being a piece of shit and rooting for it to happen because he deserved it, then watching him have to learn through all of his up beliefs and change. And it never felt like a politically correct lesson anyone was forcing on you. It felt like the natural fallout and growth that comes along with up and being made to understand how and why you up. That's what How I Met Your Mother needed. Barney didn't just need to stop sleeping with other women because he wanted to be with Robin. He needed to understand that what he was doing was wrong, criminally wrong, and unethical. And he needed to understand why, so the viewers could learn the lesson too. You're right too, that You is a good example of what I'm talking about in the complete picture, because what I'm saying is essentially like you could have any kind of representation as long as it's coupled with like a sensible media analysis. And I think Ken Badgley goes out of his way to force that media, like to force that into the discourse. Like, let me make it clear, this guy is bad.
Literally the fact that Penn Badgley even had to remind his audience that, hey, Joe is a bad guy. That, I'm not gonna lie, the last season was tough. It was an interesting ending, but that last season of You, whoa. I was yelling at my television. Really
wants to find true love. No. And do you say, actually, okay, to be fair to his humanity, because we all need to worry about Joe's humanity more. Yeah, I think he does want to find true love, but he has no effing clue where to find it or how, which is, you know, like a lot of us. And do you think that he's found that with love? No. No, they both kill people, okay? How could that be true love? I don't want to please people's feelings anymore. It's really exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna keep murdering. He's gonna keep stalking. He's gonna keep joeing it up. And people are gonna love it.
Love it up.
We're gonna hashtag. We're gonna be here in a year talking about season 3. It was on Lifetime, was how far are you willing to go for love? But I was always like, no, that's not.
Ooh.
That's not what that is.
This is not love. This is not love.
To me, it's like, how far are we willing to go to forgive an evil white man?
And that's the only reason, let me be clear, that's the only reason the You audience, the majority of the You audience is even receptive to the idea, to even recognizing it. Because these are people, and you can tell that based on the way they eat up, what they can see is a misogynist serial killer murdering women or whatever. They can see that, but they eat up his narrative. They hate Peach more than they hate him. They hate the women. They hate Beck and Good, XYZ. That's why it was funny. I saw somebody in my comments on the Learn How to Pop recently say to me when I was kind of explaining this phenomenon with like How I Met Your Mother, they said to me, see, later, like, yeah, that's why I don't like the last season of You. They didn't trust the audience that like we could figure it out like this. And I'm like, because you can't. They didn't.
You couldn't. You fucking idiots. You couldn't. They literally, I told my partner, I was like, the last season of You is so weird. I don't even know if this was their original intention, but they're hand-holding the audience to be like, hey, you fucking losers, Joe's the bad guy, in case you didn't get it after 4 fucking seasons. And I was laughing. I was like, you don't understand. My partner's like, well, why did they do that? I was like, because the fucking internet's fucking unhealed and all traumatized teenagers, and they don't understand that Joe's the bad guy, no matter how many times the show obviously makes it clear. And like, it's so the ending of You confused me, because for a second I was like, was this the original ending? Or do they have to do this ending because the audience wasn't getting it? Like, that's the part that I was like literally yelling at my TV about.
They had 4 seasons looking at it and seeing that you didn't get it. That's why the whole 5th season, Bronte,
fifth season,
is supposed to be the audience. It's supposed to be us who don't get it. That whole season is about the way we could know it. It could come to the light and you still, oh, he's so cute. Oh, da-da-da, tell you something different. Bronte know it. And she's somehow unsure in her brain. That is the audience. Because I'm like, you're affronted. You feel personally offended at them thinking you didn't get it. But they know that. That was what they witnessed back from them as the feedback from the.
And this goes back to my latest podcast. I don't know if you guys saw it over in the podcast channel, but like, you know, the autistic desire to over explain away people's bad behavior because your behavior has been misinterpreted and you know it's not bad. It's like, I feel like people's desire to over explain Joe's traumatic or his behavior because of his traumatic past and then make excuses. Like, and this is why I say, like, no matter who you are, even if it's not your fault, you can't be a bad person. And I think this is what my therapist taught me. Like, just because the world fucked you and because your parents fucked you over doesn't mean you get to be a bad person now. And so when she made me go apologize to people that I've hurt, what she was teaching me was how to show up in the world as within my values, no matter how bad the world is. Like, she would say, as an example, like, you think you, she's like, I'm trying to use an example that would make sense, but like, yeah, my parents shut me down and they don't listen and they raise their voices and it's annoying because it feels like they're not hearing me. And she goes, okay, have you ever done that to somebody? And I was like, yes, but they were being annoying. And she was like, right. But if that's not how you want to show up in the world, then you can't show up in that world that way just because somebody else is showing up in the world that way. And I'm trying to use like a good example, but like, you know what I mean? Like, just because I feel like it's warranted, or, oh, have you ever yelled or cussed somebody out in a way that felt like not in tune with your like good version? I was like, sure. Like, I've definitely yelled at my parents and like gotten pretty mad at them. And she goes, okay, is that how you want to show up in the world? And I'd be like, no. And she's like, so you should probably apologize for doing that. And I was like, oh, but they traumatized me. Like, they're fucked up. And she was like, yeah, but is that how you want to show up in the world? And I was like, no. And so I tried to do that. I tried to apologize for showing up in the world in the way that it's not ideal. And then learn why it bothered me and then create a scenario where I heal from that or stay out of an environment that gets me there. That's why I'm moving away from streamer language. It's why by the time I hit 40, which is my goal, is to move away from showing up on stream in a way that doesn't coincide with how I want to show up. Even if it feels authentic, which it does. I'm trying to be authentic, but like my authentic self doesn't always show up in the best way because I'm a constantly flawed and healing person. So when I come to work, and this is work, how do I want to show up at work? And that's really a big conversation to have because so many of our bosses do show up to work and they do abuse employees. They do trauma dump. Your coworkers show up and they are inappropriate at work. And so the question is, how do I show up at work in a way that's appropriate and professional, but also vulnerable and honest? And I'm learning. I'm figuring it out. Like, you know how we often say Ethan Klein, like he's 40. Why is he like trauma dumping at work? Why is he coming to work unhealed? For the same reason everyone's doing it. We're not working on ourselves. We're not actually getting better. We're getting better on the macro, but the reason we're moving so slowly is because we always just have somebody else to blame for our actions. But it has to start with you. And then it has to be like you can criticize the system, but you are not the system. You are just the person upholding it because we're not healing, because we feel like, well, we can't heal till the system does. The system can't heal till we do. The system is a reflection of us. Every construct built by man is upheld by man, and we keep upholding it. It's why women that sidestep Barney's behavior or like act like Barney's the cool guy are the same women who voted for Trump because he's just so funny. Yeah, Trump says some misogynistic things, but he's so funny. Am I right? It's like, no. Barney Stinson and Trump, like, no. But I can see why, because of the charisma. Listen, I've got lots of charisma. Elon said it all the time before he wasn't my bestie. He's not my bestie anymore. But when he was my bestie, he was like, wow, Trump. Wow, Donald. The charisma. And I was like, I know. My charisma, you know? Like, people think Donald's so fucking funny. Okay, yes, Chad says that Trump Riz. He's got that Trump Riz. But so did Bernie. And so do predators. And so do shitty people. Like, are we really voting on Riz alone? Yeah. Some people are out here voting on Riz alone.
audience for years and years and years.
And they knew it would be the final season.
And I'm glad they did that. They ended it making sure they're like, listen, if maybe these last 4 seasons, if for any reason at all, you are still deluding yourself as to who the bad guy is and what's going on here, we are not only going to make that clear to you in this final season, we're going to make it clear something about you. We are telling you something about how you go about, like, I want you to see yourself as for every second that you hate this bitch Bronte, that is how you operate. She is you. But where media fails to drive.
I did appreciate the way they went hard on her character, because I was she was pissing me off the whole time. And I was like, she really is the comment section incarnate.
Home the lesson, that is the point of media analysis. We have to do the work that the creators don't do. It is okay for us to laugh at and enjoy problematic media, so long as we remember to critically.
It's like the people that watched South Park growing up and thought they were so like woke, or woke's the wrong word, but like self-aware because they got the joke, but didn't think about not then turning the joke into their everyday humor. It's like, if all you do is make misogynistic jokes, at some point you're just a misogynist. If all you do is make racist jokes, at some point you're just a racist. And that's why I say, like, okay, guys, the difference between like BDSM and reality is the fantasy. BDSM is a lifestyle, but I just want to make sure you know, when you're doing masochistic or sadistic scenes, when you're doing a consensual BDSM scene in which somebody's being beat with a paddle, first of all, they're not supposed to be beat enough to send them to the hospital. It's supposed to be a texture, sensory experience. You're creating a sensory experience. Soft paddling is still paddling. In BDSM culture, we still call it getting beat. And then we talk about like how big is the beating, because the beating can be soft. It can just be like pat, pat. Sensory. BDSM can also be ice cubes on your back. It's a sensory experience. And the reason BDSM stays in the dungeon, okay, is because like we have to go to real life town. We have to go to like, you know, outside the fantasy town. Now, it's not to say that fantasies aren't valid and real in so many ways. Like BDSM is a lifestyle, but it doesn't exist because sex is happening. It exists because you're engaging in power exchange. And the power exchange exists within the construct of a scene. And even BDSMers that do it 24/7, the healthiest BDSMers will acknowledge that 24/7 BDSM isn't actually 24/7. So if you meet a BDSMer who's like, no, it's actually 24/7 for me, they're unhealthy. That's the point. Is like, you can't do it 24/7. You have to go to real life now. BDSM is a power exchange that exists within the confines of an experience. It can't exist in real life in a sense. Like, it's real life, but it's not like, you know, like it's fun and games when I'm all in leathers, but it's not fun and games when it comes to actually doing chores. And I know some people, I used to do this in my relationships where we'd utilize like chore time as a part of the scene. But then I recognized like, hey, real life's got to be real life. Let's go, bro. Do the dishes. Because what happens is you get a dom who's like, I'm with the dom, I can't do the dishes, so you have to do the dishes. And then all of a sudden you realize you just got a lazy boyfriend who doesn't want to do dishes. This has nothing to do with BDSM exchange. Like, no, do the dishes, bitch.
Analyze our media and parse the lessons out. Otherwise, we're just eating up shit. Stop what you're doing and listen up. You just watched a video on one of my channels, but the Illuminati-verse is huge, and I wanted to—
Illuminati-verse.
Tell you what everything is and how to find it. The Illuminati-verse has 6 channels.
Look at
on
this.
the YouTube homepage of any one of those channels.
Ooh.
Every single channel in the Illuminati-verse is featured at the bottom of the page, so you can always—
Olay and Friends is my favorite.
Easily find them. Okay, remember I said that. Don't say I ain't tell you how to find it. Subscribe to my main channel, Illuminati, to find my Illuminati productions, which are my long form video essays, and also all of my backlog of content. Subscribe to my second love child, Illuminati Pop, for my weekly video essays analyzing my favorite TV and movie shows and characters. Illuminati Pop also has its own Patreon where you get all of those videos uncensored. Subscribe to my channel, Olay and Friends, for my podcast, Olay and Friends. New episodes of Olay and Friends come out every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to Olay and Chill for new episodes of my podcast, Olay and Chill, every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Love
and
that.
also, both Olay and Friends and Olay and Chill are both available
Olay and Chill also
on
very
streaming
good.
platforms like Spotify. Subscribe to Illuminati Bites if you want my takes, but you don't have an hour to spend. Subscribe to Illuminati Politics for my political analysis and my State of the Union type addresses on my—
Fun fact, my least favorite channel. Fun fact, my least favorite channel. But yet beautiful. It's great. I'm subscribed.
show O Squared. And last but not least, subscribe to my Substack Illuminati for my written work.
Damn. I'll link the video again in the chat. Subscribe to my podcast channel as well. You can also listen on Spotify, but honestly, I love you leaving YouTube comments. Guys, we did it. That's our theme for today. That's our stream for today. We'll come back tomorrow. Who knows what I'm going to cover. Today changed. I had another thing in mind. Maybe tomorrow we'll do it. But today was a different vibe. You never know what happens. When I end stream and I get on the phone and all of a sudden I'm inspired to do something else. Okay? I'm inspired to do something else. So that's what happened is I thought I was going to do something else and then I came in and we did something else. Okay. So like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. I just want to say, to bring it all home, we are simply people existing. And if you're interested in the deconstruction, whether it's from the political lens or the philosophical lens, know that there is a limitation to the political lens. We have got to stop thinking politics is the depth of humanity when it is literally a creation of it. Okay? That is the part that I really want you to understand. That the difference, okay, between philosophical and political, okay, is the depth. It's the depth, okay? Politics can only go so deep, but philosophy is endless. You do have to come to an end with politics. And that's why it's a winning or losing game, because there's an end goal, okay? And the end goal really does end. But with philosophy, it never ends. You just keep going. You just keep going. Deconstruction never ends unless you want it to. But it never actually ends if you're existing and you're deconstructing and you're gaining wisdom and you're really asking, because like, you don't want to be, it's up to you, right? Like, I don't want to make a prescription, but like, if you don't want to be jank, if you don't want to be the old person that looks at young people and goes, oh, young people. If you don't want to be the old person, right, who doesn't get what these young people are doing, then you have to stay informed and you have to stay aware and you have to keep deconstructing your own relationship with time, with life as we move through it. And I think philosophy is the answer to that. But don't get stuck in philosophical labels. Don't get stuck and say, well, which form of philosophy should I subscribe to? None of them. None of them. Stop limiting yourself. But you want to do that because it's inherent in us, in our base experience, to want an answer so we know how to show up. And I get that. And that's why I say my levels, my philosophy system that I'm working on is showing you levels. Most people stop at 2 and chill. Okay? Because they are looking. They're just like, just tell me the answer though, so I can do my life. But the answer is that your life is the doing. That's the answer. Do life. Live your life. But see, that's not good enough for people because they'll say, well, why am I living my life? That's a great question. I don't know. That's the part of the doing part. But they feel like they can't live their life until they figure it out. Which is like, I hear you, but also, I can't do life until I get my job. I can't live the life I want until I make money. I can't live my life until the system is corrected. I can't live my life, blah, blah, blah. You're doing it. You are living your life. You're just not living in your life. You're living for future you, but all you should be doing is living in present you, doing the work so that future you has better tools. I always keep future Brittany in mind, but I want to make sure that I'm here, present, and really enjoying my life. I really want you to enjoy your life. Okay? All right. All right, girlies. That's it. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. 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 Some Samantha Dragonati on the way out. Good chat, by the way. I really appreciated the comments, and I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All right. Good night.